We're close to getting started. I'm just waiting on some information from the registrars, but we do have a quorum. And so I'm going to start with a couple of announcements while I'm waiting for some information from them. First of all, I'm advised by the Board of Health that face coverings or masks are not required tonight. They strongly recommend them because of the increase in cases in Harwich of COVID at this point. So I wanted to make sure I gave that recommendation to you from the Board of Health. Obviously, there's no smoking anywhere in this building or on the grounds. I'd ask that you shut off your cell phones now, unless, of course, you're emergency personnel, and then you can use that as required. Anyone who is in this room needs to have registered with the registrars and have a voter card. This is the card, the color for tonight. If you don't have one of these and you're a voter participating, you need to get out there and register with the Board of Registrars and make sure you have that voter card. If you're a non-voter, you're welcome. The non-voter section is the bleacher section immediately to my right. So I'd ask anybody who does not have a voter card, move to that section at this point so that I can keep track as we go along in the meeting. Anyone who does not have a voter card. And conversely, if there's anybody up there that has a voter card, you should move to the floor to make sure that you get counted during the course of the evening. In Harwich Town Meeting, for those of you who haven't been here before, we have our own rules of procedure that were adopted by the town many years ago. They're incorporated in our general bylaws. The selectmen have had those published for you. They're on page 5 of your warrant. There's a motion chart. Shows you all the motions that are in order at a Harwich Town Meeting and whether they're debatable and the quantum of vote necessary to pass each one. Also in your warrant, the selectmen have published on page 4 certain voting procedures that are, again, part of our general bylaws of the town, and those are in there for informational purposes as well. If we run into a situation from a procedural standpoint that isn't covered in our motion chart, then we use as our guide town meeting time, the Massachusetts Moderator's Handbook. And so that is our reference in the event that we need to find an answer for something that isn't in our local bylaws. The process here at Harwich Town Meeting is that I read each article, and there'll be some that I will not read in their entirety, and I'll mention those in a moment, but that's the process that starts each article. I then turn to, per our bylaws, the Finance Committee, and if the Finance Committee has a positive motion on the article, then the Finance Committee makes it, and that puts the business before the meeting, and debate opens up. If the Finance Committee does not have a positive motion, then I will look to the floor, the petitioner of the article perhaps, or anyone else on the floor who wants to make a positive motion. And if you do, then I'll take that positive motion, assuming it's in order, and that will start the article and debate. So there is an opportunity always to get a positive motion before the voters to the extent that we can. If there's no positive motion forthcoming, bylaw requires me to go back to the Finance Committee. They move indefinite postponement, and the meeting will proceed to debate and act on the motion for indefinite postponement. So for articles that I will not read in their entirety, hopefully you've been through your warrant. They're as follows. Article 4 is the budget article, the operating budget for the town. Appendix B in the back of your warrant contains the budget. We'll be voting on column 5, the 5th column in on Appendix B, which is the Selectmen's recommended budget. So I obviously will not be reading through all of that, but any portion of the budget is in order, and a question can be raised with respect to any portion of the budget. Article 5 is the Regional School District Amendment. I'm not going to be reading all of that either. That's Appendix D in the back of your warrant. There's a good explanation with some the use of colors back there. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read it before you came this evening. That's Appendix D. Article 13 is the capital plan. It's labeled capital budget, bit of a misnomer. It's really a plan, not a budget. There's no money being authorized under that particular article. And that's Appendix C, and I won't read all of Appendix C either in the back of your warrant. Other articles I'll not read in their entirety are a couple of bylaw amendments. The amendment to water-dependent structures, that's Article 42 on page 35 of your warrant. The amendment to the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, it's Article 43, it's on page 39 of your warrant. The Department Revolving Funds Article, Article 44 on page 42, I won't read all of that one. Same thing with Article 45, which has the authorizations for the revolving funds and the limitation on spending under each fund. That's on page 44. And ever optimistic as I am, I'm giving you the information. I will not be reading Article 57 in its entirety tonight either. And that contains kind of a detailed description in the article. I won't be reading all of that. That's on page 53. So those are the articles that hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at and go through that I will not be reading in their entirety. Next, I'd ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I go to the town clerk for the return of the warrant, I'd like to recognize Selectman Donald Howell, who has an award. Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was wondering if I could have the Doan family up here.
I don't think they can hear you.
I think that's out of preference from a number of people. Who's got the mixer? Hi. For the folks who came in here tonight, you recognize that the hallway is festooned with a lot of pictures of people who are all an assemblage of the Harwich Hall of Fame. Mr. Kukunis, who's sitting right over there, and I periodically work with each other on things, and this is one of the enduring things that we have worked on through the years. So without further ado, I have something to read. Virginia E. Ginny Stidstone Doan was probably best known as the town librarian at Brooks Free Library for 42 years. Under her leadership, the library grew to a renovated state-of-the-art facility, increasing its holdings tenfold. Ginny was a co-founder of the Harwich Junior Theater, a past president and a treasurer. Her interest in Cape Verdean and theater literature led her to provide the research for the play Branded Hands, A Habit of History, performed by the HJT. Life member of the Harwich Historical Society, serving on the committees for the town's 275th and 300th anniversaries. Her monograph, Birth of a Building, The Story of Harwich's Exchange Hall, was published in 1965. Ginny was also the Grand Marshal of the Cranberry Festival in 1989. It is my pleasure to lift up to you the 2022 Harwich Hall of Fame inductee, Virginia E. Ginny Stidstone Doan. But as with most of government, we're going to ask for that back. We're going to put it back up later.
And for those of you who don't know, these are her children, Bob and Andrea Doan. So. I'll now recognize the town clerk for the purpose of reading the return of the warrant. Use this one.
Good evening. To either of the constables of the town of Harwich in the county, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and to warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet in the Community Center Gymnasium, 100 Oak Street, in said town on May 2nd, 2022 at 7 p.m., then and there to act on the following articles. And the constable's return, April 7th, 2022. By virtue of this warrant, I have this day notified and warned Harwich qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet at the Harwich Community Center, 100 Oak Street, in said town on Monday, the 2nd day of May, 2022, at the time and place for the purpose herein named, by posting attested copies thereon in the 4 post office buildings in the town hall, the community center in the town of Harwich, which covers all 4 precincts, at least 14 days before the time of said meeting, as within directed, and causing an attested copy thereof to be published in the Cape Cod Chronicle, published in Barnstable County, and having a circulation in the town of Harwich, signed Constable D. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll now go to Article 1. To choose various town officers and committees. Mr. Chori.
Good evening. My name is John Chori, Chair of the Finance Committee. Article 1, Town Officers and Committees. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Second. John, I take those. Sorry. So the motion under Article 1 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's unanimous vote, and I so declare it. I need to take a recess for 1 minute. Carolyn? Just come here a second. I can hear you.
She's here and wants to sit in that room.
Okay.
So should I send Maddie and do this for her?
Yeah, whoever I need to swear in.
She's here.
Okay.
Will you just turn on your radio for us?
Gave it to me. It's up there.
No, what'd you do with that?
Here it is.
Okay. Now will you do this one and I'll turn that one on and I'll send that in for you.
Okay. So what's going on is that we had a voter who was not able to come into the main hall as a result of the COVID situation we're dealing with. So we have set up a separate room for that voter and any others that are of a similar ilk. And in order for them to participate in the meeting, which is their right under the general laws, I will be swearing in an assistant moderator to see if they want to speak or participate. We have arranged a television. It is a 10-second delay, but it does get to them, and we'll allow them to participate. So I'm going to have to go down there and just swear in the person who is going to take any votes that occur in that room. There may end up being more than this one person. So bear with me for a minute while this recess continues, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Then I go back to the farm.
Jim, what is Maddie's last name? I just swore her in, if you want to make a note in your records, as the assistant moderator for the purposes of getting the votes of that one individual.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
She says she may not want to vote on everything, so I just kind of have to, Maddie's going to let me know when she does want to vote.
Okay.
That's where we're at. Thank you for your patience. So, as I said, we do have one voter down there in that room who does want to participate, and so I've sworn in an assistant moderator for that specific purpose. And I will be checking whenever that individual wants to vote. Apparently, it may not be on every article, but when they do, they're going to let me know, and I will certainly incorporate the results in our total tally. So I appreciate your patience, and we'll try and make this work. So we had completed Article 1, which was to choose various town officers. At this time, the moderator makes the following appointments. Finance Committee, I appoint Angelo Lamantia to a 3-year term, expiring June 30th, 2025. I appoint Robert Doan, who you saw up here earlier, to a trustee on the Caleb Chase Trust Fund. That's Virginia Doan's son. And I appoint to the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District Committee Robert Furtado, a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025. And I reserve the right to make all our appointments at a later time. Article 2, to hear the reports of all town officers and committees for the year 2021. Mr. Chori.
Good evening. Article 2, reports of town officers and committees. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 2 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. I'll now recognize Mr. Chori, Chairman of the Finance Committee, for the purpose of making the Finance Committee report. Mr. Chori.
Thank you. Good evening. My name again is John Chori. I am Chair of the Harwich Finance Committee. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Welcome to the 2022 Harwich Annual Town Meeting. You folks in the audience are the legislative branch of town government, and your responsibility tonight is to listen to the various budgets, community preservation articles, and both non-monetary articles and monetary articles being presented tonight. I encourage you, if you have any questions or do not understand what is being presented, to go to one of the various mics spread in the hall tonight and ask. Ultimately, you are deciding tonight the fiscal year 2023 budgets, and it's up to you folks in the audience to do that. The Board of Selectmen have prepared a FY23 warrant totaling 58 articles, with a budget total of $85,319,008 if all the articles and budgets are approved. The warrant makes up 5 operating budgets, comprised of the town operating budget, which is Article 4, the Monomoy Regional School District budget, which is Article 6, the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School budget, Article 7. Details for these budgets can be seen in Appendix B, as the moderator pointed out earlier in the back of the book. There are 2 enterprise funds in the town. These are the Water Department budget, which is funded primarily from users' fees, Article 8, and the Wastewater Department budget, Article 9. The warrant also includes Community Preservation Committee articles, Articles 29 through 37, which, if all pass, the total would be $2,950,325. The warrant also includes fiscal year 2023 capital budget, Article 13, Appendix C-2 in the back of the warrant book. It also contains the 5-year capital plan found in Appendix C-1, also in the back of the warrant. Contained in the 5-year capital plan are capital requests this year for $3,446,298 for fiscal year 23. More importantly is the total of $78,798,398 over the next 5 years, of which $55,565,000 is related to water and wastewater departments for proposed projects. There is one capital request that requires a Proposition 2.5 override this year, and that's the Road Maintenance Article 25. The requested amount is $700,000 and is augmented by approximately $700,000 in state Chapter 90 funds. The voting on this ballot question is May 17th and is also in Appendix A in the back of the book. For fiscal year 2023, there are 5 operating budgets in the warrant, Article 4 through 9. The town operating budget increased by $2,542,983, or 6.3%. The Monomoy School district budget increased by $680,157, or 2.5%. The Cape Cod Regional Technical High School budget increased by $543,005, or 35.3%. And this was due totally to the increased enrollment of students, from 51 students this year to 71 students next year. The Water Department budget decreased $8,413, or 0.2%, largely due to a debt extinguishment. The wastewater budget increased by $1,841,688, or an increase of 357.38%. This is largely due to a debt service payment. In total, the 5 operational budgets increased $761,482, or 5.4% over last year's budget. This has been an extremely extraordinary year again, with all the challenges that COVID still has presented to us all. I would like to thank the Board of Selectmen for their work in putting together the 2022 annual town warrant, so that we may all have this town meeting in person, the town administrator, Joe Powers, and finance director, Carol Coppola, for their continuous support, guidance, and help, and all the public works employees and public safety employees that are physically put this event together and continue to keep us safe. Unlike last year, most of the Finance Committee meetings were held in person and virtually with public, the selectmen and various town heads and other town committees. I would like to acknowledge and thank the members of the Finance Committee for the many hours and meetings that were put into reviewing and voting on town budgets and warrants. And finally, my enormous gratitude and thanks go out to the many other dedicated volunteers of the various other town committees that contribute to their time to enhance the running of this town of Harwich. They too face many of the same challenges the Finance Committee faced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chori. Article 3, see if the town will vote the salaries of the elected officials of the town for fiscal year commencing July 1, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023, as follows, and to act fully thereon. Selectmen 5, $2,400 each. Moderator $1,000. Water and Water Commissioners $5,000 each. Library Trustees $7,000 each. Town Clerk $83,484. Mr. Chori.
Article 3, elected officials' salaries. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. Explanation. The town clerk is not an employee, but the salary is equivalent to that of a M5 grade step 1, as outlined in the personal bylaws compensation and classification table.
Motion's been made under Article 3 and seconded. It's to accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Yes,
Hi.
ma'am.
Hi, Sharon Foster. I live in West Harwich. I'm assuming that this is line item number 2 on the recommended budget. Am I reading this correctly?
I'm going to try and get you an answer. So, line item 2, Selectmen's salary and wages.
Is that correct?
Carol?
This includes line item 1, the moderator salary and wages. Line item 2, the town clerk is located in line item 42. The library trustees are located in line item 113. The commissioners, the water and wastewater commissioners, are located in those enterprise fund budgets.
Okay, so the $750,000 increase under line item 2 that says Selectmen S&W, which I assume is salary and wages, is not covered by this?
I'm sorry, what line item are you referring to?
She's
It's
referring
your
to line
recommended
item two.
budget. It's line item number 2 under moderator. It says Selectmen, S&W, and the dollar change in the recommended budget for this year is $750,000. Is that what we're voting on right now?
No, that is not what you're voting on right now. That is, pertains to the 8 unions that are currently being negotiated within the town, that the Board of Selectmen are negotiating those contracts.
I didn't see what article that was in the warrant.
So this is part of the operating budget. Article 4.
Article 4. Okay,
So
thank
we're
you.
on Article 3, however, not to confuse the voters.
Perfect, thank you.
And Article 3 merely sets the salaries of elected officials. It's a requirement of the general laws that the legislative body, you, the town meeting, set the salaries of elected officials. And then the funds for those are contained in the budget, which we'll get to in the next article. Any further debate on the motion under Article 3, which is accept and adopt as printed? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 3 so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 4. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray town charges for fiscal year 2023 and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 4, Town Operating Budget. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $42,188,893 be appropriated for the purpose listed in Appendix B under the column entitled BOS Recommended FY 2023, and further that the sum of $39,893,833 be raised and appropriated, and that the following amounts be transferred as follows. Community Preservation Act funds, $221,525. Overlay surplus, $200,000. PEG Access and Cable Related Fund, $190,869. Golf Improvement Infrastructure, $101,700. State Aid, $725,976. And various betterments of $64,025. Further, that the sum of $759,278 be raised and appropriated in the general fund operating budget and allocated to the Water Enterprise Fund the sum of $31,687 to be raised and appropriated to the general fund operating budget and allocated to the Wastewater Enterprise Fund for the purpose of funding fiscal year 2023 operating budget.
Okay, the motion's been made under Article 4 and seconded. The figures I want to make sure you're aware of are the total budget figure, which is $42,188,893, and the total on the tax levy is $39,893.833. And then the balance of the appropriation is contained in the various funds that Mr. Chori read. The town charter requires that the Board of Selectmen present the operating budget to the town meeting, and so I'll recognize Mike McCaskill, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, to present the budget. Mr. McCaskill.
Thank you, Moderator. Good evening. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we extend our thanks to Harwich residents for their attendance at town meeting and your participation in local government throughout the year. The board has seen some change in its membership this past year. We welcomed our newest member, Mary Anderson, and said goodbye to Ed McManus, who decided not to seek re-election. We welcome back our former colleague, Julie Kavanaugh, who was elected in September to fill the remainder of Stephen Ford's unexpired term until the May elections. We are all saddened by the untimely passing of Selectman Ford. He was a great asset to the board and served the community well in his role as Selectman and Vice Chairman. I know I speak for my colleagues on the board as we continue to mourn his passing and keep his family in our thoughts and prayers. Tonight we present you with 58 articles for your consideration. We bring forward a balanced budget which stands at 5.4% increase, including excluded debt. Although the budget expense total is over 2.5%, we do not require an override on local taxes because we have sufficient revenue growth to offset the expense total. The main drivers in the increase of the budget include an enrollment spike of 20 Harwich students at the Cape Cod Regional High School with a 35.3% increase, equaling $543,000. An increase in the Monomoy Regional budget of 2.5%, equaling a total of $680,000, and wastewater excluded debt that is now hitting the tax levy. We have worked diligently over the past few budget cycles to minimize the tax impact to residents while continuing to provide the highest level of services and addressed our wastewater requirements. One of the major goals of the board over the last year has been to create equity in the Monomoy Regional School Agreement. To that end, under Article 5, we propose a change to the agreement under which each town will pay for its own share of elementary school students. This change would equalize costs between our communities and result in a savings of approximately $700,000 to Harwich taxpayers. It is important to note that the proposed change must pass both Harwich and Chatham town meetings. Support of this change will have a positive impact on future budgets while continuing to provide a quality education for the children in our community. The board is committed to do due diligence and discovery of owners unknown and miscellaneous parcels as a means to establish the town's interest in these parcels for future municipal use or sale to return them to the tax levy. To that end, Article 39 requests an allocation of $500,000 of free cash to perform the legal and title research necessary to clarify the legal standing of a significant number of parcels. As a town, we must invest in our infrastructure and municipal assets. We prepare and maintain a 5-year capital plan that guides the funding requests on an annual basis and is included in your warrant. While the majority of these requests are funded through our available free cash, we are asking residents to support a debt exclusion in the amount of $700,000 for our road maintenance and improvement plan. The town is strategic in leveraging our state Chapter 90 funds to maintain and improve our 142 miles of public roads. Additional funding is needed to meet the requirements of our pavement management plan. The town budget proposes 2 new positions that we feel will bolster the efforts of the community to manage growth while maintaining community character. The first is the position of a cultural director. The town of Harwich has become known for culture, having 2 pending cultural districts designations, a cultural center, artisan shacks at Saquatucket Harbor. Culture and history are critical components of Harwich's past, our present, our economic growth, and our identity. We all know that there's a housing crisis on Cape Cod. The housing crisis is negatively impacting both our residents personally and the economic viability and character of our community. Addressing the housing crisis is a top priority of this board. As shown by neighboring communities, one of the most effective ways of addressing our housing needs is to have dedicated staff who are working to create, support, and maintain a diverse housing stock. The board proposes within the town budget the creation of a full-time housing advocate position to both assist in the creation of new community housing options and to support residents who are struggling to stay in our town. The board and administration are here this evening to present and answer questions about the proposed articles. We, like you here tonight, are committed to the town of Harwich and the best possible community that we can build together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCaskill. I'll now open it up for debate on the budget. Yes, Mr. Powers, Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. My name is Joe Powers, Town Administrator. I've worked for the town for 3 years, and this is my first annual town meeting indoors, and it's an absolute thrill for us to be back home again. And with that, building off of Selectman Chairman McCaskill's report this evening, I wanted to draw your attention to Appendix B in the back of your warrant book. and I want to identify several line items that I expect that there is interest and potential discussion on. If you begin in Appendix B, line item 2, which was mentioned earlier, you'll see that there is an increase of $762,500. And what that, the bulk of that gets to is the $750,000 that was spoken of previously. And again, that is to fund ongoing collective bargaining agreement with the 8 unions and also potentially fund cost of living adjustments if appropriate for personnel bylaw employees. Next, you'll see on line item 14, which is the assessor's expense line item. There's an increase of $32,320. That's an enhancement of services, and what that is meant to get to is additional training and technology that is needed in that department that will also assist with what the chairman spoke on earlier and what we may hear discussion on later this evening on owners unknown and miscellaneous parcels. Line item 26, administration, salary and wages. The addition of $140,997. Prior to that, the administration salary and wages line item was actually going to be a decrease, but as you've heard already, that what accounts for that change is the Director of Cultural Affairs position, which is a personnel bylaws position proposed. It would be the equivalent of a grade M4, step 1, the opening salary, which would be $76,886. And you heard reference to the housing advocate, which also would be proposed in the personnel bylaws, a grade M3, step 1, and that salary would be $70,538. Line number 36, which is information technologies expenses line item, that dollar amount of $165,359 is meant to help the IT department get us into, I won't say the 21st century, but if we could get into the late 20th century, we'd be making progress. And the bulk of that is to partner with Barnstable County IT support. They've been there for us this year, and we're looking for their assistance in addition to the computer coordinator position that exists. Line number 43 is town clerk expenses, $29,076, and that's because we have an even year, which means we have more elections, and it also means elections that now require early voting. So this is accounting for the elections that will occur in fiscal year 23, starting in this fall in September, and the related costs of early voting with that. This one is a little bit trickier, meaning there are several line items related to the change in community development. So first, if you look at lines 58 and 59, under Appendix B, you'll see that there is reductions in both the salary and wages and expense line item, and that's because you'll see them now appearing in line item 48, which is on the previous page, and that is town planner salary and wages and expenses. Building department, line item 98. Board of Health, line item 98, and you can see that that also increases, as well as building under line item 75. The long answer on that is twofold. First, that community development used to be a core of executive assistants, and what we found is it's more helpful for the departments to have those executive assistants under their budgets. So if you look at line item 58 and 59, you can see that this is the first full year that we've unwound that. We started that in fiscal year 22. Line item 98 is also Board of Health expenses, enhancement of services, and that relates to additional software to help the health department expand on their food code inspections, and so we're enhancing that with software. And as you know, in fiscal year 22, the board increased the position of health inspector from part-time to full-time. Line item number 104, Council on Aging salary and wages. That's an enhancement of services. It's the Board of Selectmen's commitment to our seniors and the Council on Aging, and that's adding an additional program specialist 2, which is the official title, and that will help get additional programming as our society continues to age. Line item 105, Council on Aging expenses, $30,447, and that's an enhancement of services for the Council on Aging to add supplemental nutrition programs. And then last, under those sections, which completes the operating budgets under line 138, right before that, line 137, interfund transfers of $1,304,493, and that is funding the wastewater debt through the general tax levy. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Further debate. This gentleman to my right.
Thank you, Steve Noyes, Wood Lily Road. Two quick questions. One, I comment first, I think it's sad that the town of Harwich has to have an $85 million operating budget. Secondly, if I could be told what the current debt status is of the town and the amount of interest that we're paying on that debt.
So the question is total debt service and the amount annually we pay in debt service. Give us just a moment and we'll get you an answer. Our finance director.
The town of Harwich has a number of outstanding debt obligations currently. Those total $35,548,000. And of those, they date back to, to early 2000s. Many of them are currently being paid off over the next number of years. But as you're aware, the town has taken on some wastewater debt. And will continue to take on wastewater debt as you have approved certain projects. So with that said, there are bonds that are authorized, that town meeting has authorized, but the town has not issued them yet. The town hasn't issued them yet because the town hasn't spent the money. So those total $35,631,000. And then there's another component, and that would include what's being brought before you on your capital plan this evening. So the 5-year capital plan includes some projects that you as voters will be asked to support with debt exclusions or with borrowings, long-term debt borrowings. And those total $83,513,000, but that's over the life of the debt. So when we talk about this, this isn't just the principal. This is an estimated interest amount too, and it's what the town would be paying to pay off the bonds. I hope that answers the question.
The other part of the gentleman's question was what's our annual debt payment, if there's an annual debt payment currently?
I was specifically looking for the amount of interest we're paying on the debt.
Well, the amount of interest varies based on the issuance. So they vary from a 0% all the way up to a 3.69%, and that was issued in 2006. I don't have the interest separated for you. I have just principal and interest totaled. So I can certainly bring that back to you tomorrow, but I don't have that at my fingertips tonight.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further debate on the operating budget?
Yes. Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
Sharon Foster, West Harwich.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So now we're getting back to the $750,000, which is for, because it wasn't spelled out again in here. I didn't see it broken out and explained. That's for what?
Line item 2, that was
Yeah.
on the unions. Mr. McCaskill.
I'll take a stab at that. That is for, we're negotiating union contracts. So
it's going to cost us $750,000 to negotiate. I mean,
Mrs. Foster, if you just let Mr. McCaskill respond to your question.
I apologize.
Okay.
It's not going to cost us that to negotiate. What that will be would be the increase in salaries for those union adjustments. So that's a cost of living increase, and it's a standard cost of living increase that has been before town meeting for a long time.
Okay, so That's not in for the police and fire and all these different groups that it's reflected. It's not listed elsewhere in the budget. This is a separate line item.
That's what we're calculating that that's going to cost us. So it
In
is
addition to the increase in the salaries that we see in this detailed budget.
the increase in salaries that you see is for this year. That would be for next year, the $750,000.
I think there's increases in everybody's salary.
And that would be the past contracts and what we negotiated in the past. That is for the current contract. The 750 recognizes that we're entering into new contracts, and that would be the wage adjustments for the new contracts.
Okay, thank you. You want us to vote and approve of this now, but there are warrant items that address individual ones. So if we approve this now, why? I'm kind of confused. It seems like we're doing this backwards. We're approving a budget without being able to address line item issues.
Mrs. Foster,
Am I missing?
I'm not sure of your question, but any line item in this budget can be addressed now. We're voting.
sorry.
We're voting all of the line items under the fifth column. Board of Selectmen recommendation. That's what the motion is that's before the meeting currently.
Okay, so all of the warrant items and the rest of the articles are not reflected in the budget right now. Is that correct?
To the extent that they seek additional appropriations, they're not.
Okay, all right. Move to the next one.
If I may, on the previous speaker.
Yes, Mr. McCaskill.
And just to address the previous speaker, the operating budget is not $85 million. So on same Appendix B, the town operating budget is $42,188,000. That's the operating budget. If you add the schools and the other operating budgets into it, it goes up to $73,584,000. So it is not an $85 million budget that we're asking you to approve tonight.
Any further questions? Yes, sir.
If I can add to the miss from West Harwich, Ryan Fazzino from South Harwich. What's that? Who are you? Oh, Ryan Fazzino from South Harwich.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, sir. We just need it for the record.
Ryan Fazzino from South Harwich. I can speak on behalf of the union negotiations on the fact that the Harwich Police Department are one of the lowest paid departments on the Cape. So negotiations for that is imperative to retain officers and to hire and recruit further. That's just my additions to that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Carol Thayer, Howard Center.
Sorry,
I'd like-
Carol, I didn't recognize you from the distance.
That's okay.
Good evening.
It's okay. I'd like to inquire as to how many of these increases in the salary and wage account line items include new positions that have customarily been done by article.
Mr. Powers, question is how many new positions in the budget?
The new positions in the budget would be the ones referenced under line item 26, administration, which were Director of Cultural Affairs and Housing Advocate. And under Council on Aging, it's not a new position, it's an additional position, meaning we've never had the roles of Director of Cultural Affairs or Housing Advocate before. They're brand new. The Program Specialist, 2 positions, the titles already exist. We're adding an additional. So 3 in this budget.
So those are the 3 new positions in the budget. 1 additional position and 2 new ones.
Well, in my past experience as chairman of the Finance Committee many years ago, new positions were always done via article so that we knew what we were getting and what the increases were going to be. We also had a time when we funded new positions via an override because it isn't just what we're paying now, it's what we're going to be paying in the future. So I just want to raise that as a point. I mean, I think we need to know what these increases are. I think they need to be spelled out as they used to be. Thank you.
Further debate? Mr. Powers?
Thank you. Just to the previous speaker, it's my understanding that positions traditionally came before a town meeting prior to 2006, and those positions that came before a town meeting, it was the funding source that was being debated. The funding source that the board is relying upon is the operating budget, as it does for all other positions. So, to my knowledge, there has not been a new position created that has come before town meeting since 2006 because of the funding mechanism. It's my understanding that the board is operating as has been done for the last 16 years. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Further debate on the motion before you under Article 4, the operating budget. It looks like you're ready for a vote. So the motion before you was the motion read by Mr. Chori, and it moves Appendix B, the fifth column, Board of Selectmen. It calls for a total budget figure of $42,188,893. That's the general operating. The raise and appropriate is $39,893,833, and the balance is transferred from various funds. All is contained in the motion as read. All those in favor of the motion so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 5.
Article 5, amend the...
Wait, well, hold on one second, John, just get me a... I appreciate you wanting to expedite matters. Article 5, see if the town will vote, consistent with Section 17 of the agreement between the towns of Chatham and Harwich with respect to the formation of a regional school district, amend said agreement regarding the method of assessing costs for the town's elementary schools, to address the allocation of school choice funds, and to amend the budget process and the process of incurring debt, to bring the agreement into alignment with statutory requirements as proposed by the Monomoy Regional School District Committee on March 24, 2022, and as set forth in the attachment included Appendix D in the warrant. Mr. Chori.
Article 5, amend the agreement between the towns of Chatham and Harwich with respect to the formation of a regional school district. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Motion under Article 5 is to accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 6. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to pay for the Monomoy Regional School District assessment for fiscal year 2023 and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 6, Monomoy Regional School District Budget. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. And the sum of $28,041,205 be raised and appropriate for the purpose of funding the town of Harwich's assessment for the fiscal year 2023 annual operation of the Monomoy Regional School District.
Motion under Article 6 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. The sum is $28,041,205 to be raised and appropriated for the purpose of funding the town of Harwich assessment for fiscal 2023 annual operation of the Monomoy Regional School District. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as indicated so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 7. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money as may be required to pay for the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District assessment for fiscal year 2023 and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 7, Cape Cod Regional Tech Budget. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $2,079,314 be raised and appropriated to fund the annual operation of the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School.
Motions are made and seconded under Article 7. It's accept and adopt. The sum is $2,079,314. It's proposed to be raised and appropriated. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed as saying no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 8. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray the Water Department operating budget for fiscal 2023 and act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 8, Water Department Budget. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $4,255,954 be transferred from the Water Department receipts to operate the Water Enterprise Fund for this purpose. Salaries, $1,280,901. Expenses, $1,629,127,000. Debt of $536,648. Indirect costs, $759,278. OPED, which is other post-employment benefits, is $50,000. And further, to transfer the sum of $50,000 from the Water Department budget to other post-employment benefits trust fund created under Article 8 of the May 6, 2014 special town meeting.
Motion under Article 8 is accept and adopt. The total figure is $4,255,954 in the various subcategories as Mr. Chori read in the motion. Is there any debate on Article 8? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 9. Wastewater. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray the Wastewater Department operating budget for fiscal 2023 and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 9, Wastewater Department Budget. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $337,195 be raised and appropriated, and $200,000 be transferred from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund retained earnings for this purpose. Salaries, $80,848. Expenses, $424,660. Debt of $1,819,824. Indirect costs of $31,687,000. Note, Water Department debt of $1,819,824 is raised through general taxation in the operating budget of Article 4, and the transfer to the Wastewater Enterprise Fund to support wastewater debt.
Second.
Motion under Article 9 is accept and adopt. The sum is $337,195, raised and appropriated, and $200,000 transferred from Wastewater Enterprise Fund for this purpose. Any debate on Article 9?
I have a question.
I recognize this gentleman here first.
Yes, my name is Joseph LaRose. I live in East Harwich. I'm not sure this is the right place to bring this up, but I noticed in the capital outlay plan, there's an amount in here of $30 million for fiscal year 24 on wastewater, specifically for the East Harwich collection system expansion. I'm just wondering if we could get a little bit of information on that proposed capital outlay.
We are going to be discussing the plan under Article 13, and that's in the plan, and that will be appropriate debate at that point. So if you could hold that question to Article 13.
I will.
And we'll stay on the wastewater budget at the moment.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Judy Gustafson from Harwich Center. I have a similar question. Can you explain the wastewater treatment, whatever it is, since we all have septic systems?
Question is, why do we have a wastewater department budget if we all have septic systems? Mr. Thompson. Yeah, so Mr. Thompson rose to speak. He's a water and sewer commissioner, and he wants the superintendent of the water and sewer department, who's not a voter, to address the meeting. And in order to address the meeting, if you're not a voter, you need the approval of the meeting. Do I hear any objections? Hearing none, I'll recognize. And your name again, sir?
Dan Pelletier, Water Wastewater Superintendent.
Dan Pelletier.
So the question was, why are we...
Yeah, why do we have a wastewater budget if we all have septic systems?
So the wastewater budget is used to fund the wastewater operations. There was a Phase 2 of the wastewater implementation plan was done and recently completed, so this covers operational expenses related to that for contract operations, electric, utility, things of that nature.
Further debate? I see Mr. Kukunis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Before we leave the budgets, I just want to ask a question, a general question. I noticed that the only one that has put aside for OPEB, other post-employment benefits, is the Water Department. And even this one here doesn't have any, although there's only one employee here. But could someone just tell us where we stand before we leave the budgets as far as money that we are putting aside for OPEB? Because it's a pretty large fund, I believe, or a large debt.
So a general question for Mr. Kukunis regarding the town's status with respect to OPEB generally, but specifically mentioning the wastewater budget, that it's not included there. Finance Director, Carol.
On Appendix B, line item 146, there's $250,000 in the general fund operating budget to support OPEB.
He gave you a thumbs up.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Good. Further debate on the motion under Article 9. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 10. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds or borrow such sums of money as may be required for the purpose of funding the public access station, Cape Cod Community Media Center, 17 Shad Hole Road, Dennisport, providing the public access television to the citizens of Harwich, or to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 10, Fund Cape Cod Community Media Center. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $147,302 be transferred from the PEG account, access and cable-related fund for this purpose.
Motion under Article 10 is accept and adopt. The sum is $147,302, and it's proposed to be transferred from the PEG access and cable-related fund for this purpose. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 11. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to be added to the fiscal year 2022 operating budgets of several departments to implement the new contractual agreement between the Harwich Employees Association and the town of Harwich and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 11, Fund Negotiated Contract, Harwich Employees Association, HEA. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $139,776 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 11 is accept and adopt. The sum is $139,776. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash. Debate on Article 11. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 12. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to be added to the fiscal 2022 Highway Department budget to implement the new contractual agreement between the Highway and Maintenance Employees Association and the town of Harwich. Mr. Chori.
Article 12, Fund Negotiated Contract, Highways and Maintenance Employee Association, HMEA. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $48,880 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 12 is accept and adopt. The sum is $48,880 to be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 13, adopt the capital budget. This is really a capital plan. That's a bit of a misnomer. There's no funds that are going to be appropriated in this article. It's a plan. See if the town will vote to adopt the capital budget/plan for the ensuing fiscal year as proposed by the Board of Selectmen and to set forth below or as amended by the vote of the town meeting and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Adopt Article 13, adopt the capital plan budget. I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 13 be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. Now, this is Appendix C, and I had a gentleman who had asked a question. I told him I'd get back to it. Are you still out there? If you want to come up, sir, or go to the microphone, and I'll see if I can get your answer now, because now it's in order. You were talking, I think, about the number for East Harwich.
That's correct. Again, my name is Joseph LaRose, East Harwich, and I was looking at the numbers in the capital plan, specifically the number of $30 million that's in fiscal year 24. And I wanted some additional detail on that $30 million.
Anybody want to, how about Mr. Dan Pelletier? Again, there's no objection to your speaking as a non-voter. You are the superintendent of the Water and Wastewater Department. Mr. Pelletier.
Thank you. So that $30 million is a placeholder to complete the Phase 3 construction. So that would be addressing the Round Cove and Pleasant Bay watershed areas north of where the Phase 2 wastewater was just recently completed. My hope is that that number will go down drastically with the infusion of the infrastructure bill money, but that is the current placeholder number that we're carrying forward. The surveying work was just starting next week, and they'll be getting underway with design, and that number will be refined over the next year, but that's the best number we have today.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Further debate on the plan, which is Appendix C. Mrs. Foster.
Hi, thank you. I'm bringing this up because this is a very large budget, both between the operating and the capital, and there are a lot of little expenses that add up. And we're all paying for this, so every time you say yes, you're reaching into your bank account and you're giving the town money. And so I'm looking at some of these things, and my question always has been, every meeting I come to, is this necessary, or is this a nice-to-have item? And I think we need to be very critical when we're looking at these items. And just one that jumps out at me is paying $75,000 for a privacy fence, something that this town is going to fall on its back if we don't have this privacy fence, because we're all funding this. So there's a lot of little things in this budget that if we take it out, it's not going to hurt the town, it's not going to hurt our quality of life, and I think we need to be very thoughtful for every dime that we're spending. I mean, I'm now paying $16 for 5 dozen eggs at BJ's that I spent $6.99 2 years ago. And we're all experiencing this in our daily lives, and I think we have to be very careful in our town expenditures. So, I mean, how can I say I don't want the privacy fence? Do I have to vote this no to say, because we don't seem to have line item vetoes here, is my question.
So the plan is amendable by town meeting, and so a motion to amend to strike an item is appropriate. Why don't I recognize somebody from up here to respond to what this item is, reserving your right after you hear that to bring a motion. Okay. All right? Mr. Howell, Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Try to clear up some confusion. This is not appropriating anything. For a while, we got away from planning, and the plan wasn't just for the town. The plan was for you, for your own budgets. We have now reinstituted a 5-year plan. When those things come up during the year that they're in, you will have the opportunity to decide whether it has merit or not, and vote for it or not. But this was an attempt to bring back some certainty to your own budgeting life in your own taxes. Up until now, every year was a new year. We had a capital budget that wound up changing from year to year. It didn't give you any certainty at all. This is a 5-year plan that is the first year that we're reinstituting this.
Mr. Powers, do you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
For those of you following along before Mr. Powers starts, Mrs. Foster's question involves the Appendix C, which is the plan. The second category down, community center, private fence, under fiscal 2023, $75,000. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If it helps the matter, if you have your warrant book and you turn to page 2, what you'll see in the table of contents is that we are presently under Article 13, and as our moderator has instructed us, that's the capital plan. The charter requires that every year town meeting adopt a capital plan. Skip 14 because I numbered them wrong, but if you then look 15 through 28, those are the individual capital items for this present plan for fiscal year 23. But what you will not see are two articles. There is not an article for the $75,000 for the privacy fence. The town has found funds elsewhere, if necessary, for the privacy fence. So you will not see an article, and we are not asking for that funding. Additionally, there is not an article in the plan for the Brooks Academy renovation project, as we're still working on the bid process. So, as the moderator has said, if you look on Appendix C1, that is the required 5-year plan for fiscal years 23 through 27. And then, if you adopt the plan, you will go through Articles 15 through 28 individually and all of the funding sources that go with those. I hope that helped matters, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, so let me see if I can summarize for Mrs. Foster. So, Mrs. Foster, while this is in the plan for this year, the $75,000, there is no article in this warrant to appropriate the $75,000 because they found another way to deal with the fence. So you'll not be asked to vote the $75,000 this year.
I understand, but when they find money, it's still coming out of my pocket and everyone's here. So we should have the right to decide if we want the money from whatever bucket it comes from, we want it to be spent. And I think that's my point, so thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Foster. Further debate on the capital plan. Gentleman in the middle? He was before you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That's okay. I'm Rich Larius from East Harwich, but I'm also chairman of the Capital Outlay Committee. I want to make sure we understand that Article 13 is regard the capital budget. Okay, that's the first year of the plan. So when you're looking at the $3 million and change, you're actually looking at where it says capital outlay budget. So that only addresses the right side of the 2 pages. The left side is the plan, of which the budget is the first year. Okay? So when we start discussing the articles that Mr. Power spoke of, you're going to be looking at the left side. Article 13 is addressed to the right side of the budget. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larios. Yes, sir.
I've got 2 questions, one for the gentleman that just spoke. And
Don't go away, Mr. Larios.
In this letter that the town sent out, because this confused me quite a bit too.
Me too.
So it says in item 9.6.
And your name? I didn't get your name,
Gary
sir.
Conroy.
Thank
Bay
you.
Road, sorry. A simple majority vote of the town meeting shall be required to adopt the 5-year capital outlay plan as submitted. Any amendment to previously adopted capital plan shall require 2/3 vote at the annual town meeting.
Yes.
So if the way a layman reads that is we're voting on a 5-year plan, and if we want to change anything in that plan, it requires a 2/3 majority of this meeting.
Right. Hey, may I?
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Larios.
That's going to happen next year, should you vote on the plan this year. What it imposes on the members of the capital outlay is that we're looking at 23, 24, 25, 26. Any changes in the out years, which next year would be, the first year would be 24, any changes to what we voted today would be affected by that 2/3 vote. It puts the onus on us to understand that the numbers that are given to us in the out years are subject to change Not only they're subject to change by the department, but subject to change by the vote of next year's town meeting, the 2/3. So if a number here is 5, and we want to change it to 7, we have to vote on it at this meeting next year. And then if we go down, the issue that we're addressing now is if I tell you that the number was 7, and in reality next year it's really 5, do we have to vote on going down? And I would think if we had some logic to it, no. We're lucky that it's going down. Going up, staying the same. Staying the same is fine. Going up, we'd have to look at it and take a vote. If I'm correct, Mr. Powers? I mean, we're still addressing it.
Yeah, I think the letter you're referring to, Mr. Conroy, was an effort to explain the charter change that's on the ballot for the voters on May 17th, changing the capital plan from 5 to 7 years and putting this 2/3 requirement in it going forward, starting next year.
Right, but the way I read it is if this goes through, we vote for a 5-year plan, whether it be next year or the year after, and the only way we can change it is a 2/3 majority.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So
if it's going up.
So the thing that, I'm mainly interested in, the $35 million debt that we currently have, the unissued debt that we've already approved, $35 million, the 5-year capital plan, $85 million, and the unfunded Leo Obed number 2 years ago was $35 million. So
those are not capital expenditures.
No, but they're debt and they got to be paid by the town. So my concern is with the total department's budget going up 11% this year, and where are we going as a community from fiscal responsibility, and how much does all of this capital spending going to add to the tax rate? And if all these numbers came from bonds, we'd be doubling our tax rate in the town. So this is what scares people, I think, who are sitting here tonight. And I don't know if there's a clear answer to it tonight, but maybe next year that's going to be a bigger discussion and bigger issue for all of us. Thank you.
Further debate on the capital plan. Mrs. Hall.
Hi, Sandy Hall, South Harwich. I want to try to clarify something around the capital plan and the 2/3 vote. The capital plan is intended to create a 5-year plan. It's an order of which projects are going to be handled during 5 years. It's not voting money, and the money is supposed to be an estimate. You don't need a 2/3 vote to change the money. You need a 2/3 vote to change the order. So if suddenly the fire department needs a new firehouse that you plan to build in year 4, but the old one burned down and you need to build it in year 2, 2/3 vote of town meeting could do that. I hope that helps.
Further debate on the plan. Looks like you're ready for a vote. So the motion on the article is that it be accepted, adopted as printed. Again, you're adopting Appendix C. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 14. See if the town will vote to enter into various lease purchase financing agreements for town equipment, including the operating budget for fiscal year 2023. Said leases may be a term not to exceed the useful life of the equipment as determined by the Board of Selectmen and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 14, lease purchase agreements. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 14 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Since this involves authorization of a lease purchase, it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by...
I didn't get here soon enough.
I'm sorry?
I didn't get here soon enough.
Okay.
I had to come from over there.
That's fine.
Annie Haven, Mellow Lane. I would like to know what we are leasing. Leasing is the most expensive way to operate a vehicle, so I prefer, in my own personal life, to not lease things. What are we leasing and why are we not buying it?
So the question is, what are we leasing, if we are leasing something, and why aren't we buying it? Finance Director, Ms. Coppola.
In 2016, the Municipal Modernization Act required municipalities to bring forth to taxpayers and voters the authorization to lease any equipment greater than 3 years. And so this is a standard article that has come before you for a number of years now. The town of Harwich does not intend on leasing any equipment for a 5-year period. However, if there was some drastic need that they had to, that this article would be required. The last time this was used was a few years ago. Cranberry Valley Golf Course leased some equipment for the maintenance of the golf course itself.
So there's no plan as of right now to lease anything.
That is correct.
Thank you.
It's enabling. Mrs. Foster.
Hello. So my question comes, if there's no plan, why are we voting on giving the town carte blanche with our money? And if it was so urgent, we seem to have a lot of little places we can go to where there's free cash to get stuff. For instance, that $75,000 for the fence. So why are we voting? I don't know. I don't want to give carte blanche. I don't have a vote of confidence right now. Thank you.
Mr. Powers, you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The moderator used a word that I would like to build upon, and that was enabling. As our Finance Director, Carol Coppola, just said, there is the Municipal Modernization Act from 2016 that if municipalities wish to lease, you must take this boilerplate article and get approval of town meeting. As the Chief Procurement Officer, I can tell you, as we just heard from our Chief Financial Officer, we do not intend to lease. However, if there is an extenuating circumstance, if there's some piece of emergency equipment or whatever scenario the mind can devise, we do not want to be held back if we want to rely upon that. But again, as the Chief Financial Officer and as I say, as Chief Procurement Officer, it's a boilerplate article. To my knowledge, you've approved it every year since 2017, and we're asking you to approve it again this evening. Thank you.
Gentleman to my right.
Good evening, Bob Kingsbury. I just would like clarification from the prior speaker. I believe I understood that we do not currently have any leases, and I would like clarification that that is in fact true, townwide, that we do not lease things.
The question is from this gentleman, is it in fact the case that the town currently does not have any leases? Is that true? Mrs. Coppola, Finance Director.
Leases greater than
3 years.
3 years. The town currently has one lease, and that is for John Deere equipment for Cranberry Valley Golf Course, and that's leased through TD Bank.
We have one lease, sir. Any other debate on the motion under Article 14? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. I rule that it did get the necessary 2/3 majority to pass. Article 15. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds or borrow such sums of money that may be required to purchase and install studio cameras, lighting, video production hardware, software, furniture, and network peripherals in multiple hearing rooms located for improved public meeting coverage. Mr. Chori.
Article 15, Public Education and Government, collectively called PEG, Access and Cable-Related Fund for Access. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $66,470 be transferred from the PEG account, Access and Cable-Related Fund, for this purpose.
So the motion under Article 15 is accept and adopt. The sum is $66,470, and it's proposed to be transferred from the PEG Access and Cable-Related Fund. Mrs. Foster.
Hello. I'm trying to be the voice of conscience here. Is this something that is absolutely crucial for this town to be functioning? And I think every single line item, we should be saying no if we do not have to have it, because things are getting so expensive. I don't know if you can afford it, but I certainly cannot afford everything in this budget. So my comment is, how crucial is this to the town of Harwich being able to operate and continue? And I'd like you all to vote your conscience.
Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Respectfully, I don't know that I'm going to answer that last question. Rather, what I'd like to tell you is that this is not taxpayer money, and that's why we've gone to great lengths to identify in every article in advance the funding sources. So in this particular example, the Public Education and Government, or PEG, Access and Cable-Related Fund for Access are populated or funded by our 10-year agreement with Comcast. This is money that the town has earned through the efforts of our Channel 18 station manager, who did a phenomenal job a year and a half ago, renegotiating the 10-year contract that the board signed a year ago. These are not town funds. This is funds that we receive from Comcast, and they are specifically used, if you look in front of me and around you, for all the equipment that we use here and that we use throughout town. So this is not taxpayer funds. So the question is it essential? We'd be foolish not to spend this money. It's not ours.
Any further debate?
Yes, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
One quick follow-up. Mr. Powers said it's not taxpayer money, but in the article it says to borrow such sums of money that may be required to purchase and install studio cameras, etc. If you're going to borrow money, there's going to be interest on that. That interest is going to be taxpayer money.
Yeah, there's no borrowing authorized in the motion. We don't vote on the articles, we vote on the motions, and I agree, the article gives you several different options, but the one that is moved before you and that you're voting on is simply to transfer money from the PEG Access Fund. So I want to assure you, no money's being borrowed under this motion.
Thank you.
You're entirely welcome. Any further debate on the motion under Article 15? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 16. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money to replace the main air conditioning system and boilers at the community center and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 16, Community Center Green Community Utilities. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, in the sum of $298,540 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
So the motion under Article 16 is accept and adopt. The sum is $298,540. It's proposed to be funded from free cash. Debate under Article 16. Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 17. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money to support the town's local stormwater permitting and program management and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 17, Stormwater EPA MS4 Compliance. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $100,000 be transferred from free cash to fund the EPA Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System MS4 Compliance Program.
Motion under Article 17 is accept and adopt. The sum is $100,000. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash to fund the EPA Municipal Separate Stormwater Sewer System. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 17 so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 18. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to purchase bullet-resistant vests for the police department and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 18, Replacement of Bulletproof Resistant Vests. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $49,200 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion's been made under Article 18. It's accept and adopt. The sum is $49,200. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 19. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to purchase an uninterrupted battery backup supply system for the public safety complex and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 19, Dispatch Center Battery Backup Uninterrupted Power Supply Battery Replacement. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $14,137.50 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 19 is accept and adopt. The sum is $14,137.50 is proposed to be transferred from free cash. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 20. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase new voting tabulator equipment and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 20, New Voting Tabulator Equipment. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $75,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 20 is accept and adopt. The sum is $75,000. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Mrs. Foster.
Yes, I just wanted to know what equipment was being planned on purchase and make sure you are not looking at Dominion voting equipment. And if we can put
Mr. Powers. Question is, what equipment are we proposing to buy with the $75,000?
So this article proposes to purchase, I believe, 5 vote tabulating systems to replace the ones that we have now. I'm aware of at least 2 vendors. One of them that the town uses most often is Election Systems and Software. They're out of New Hampshire. They used to be in Bedford or something like that. They're not related to Dominion. However, the town will use all of its best practices under the procurement laws to secure the best deal for the town. What you're being asked to do this evening is to support our recently retired town clerk's effort to bring us into compliance with the Secretary of State's requirements on tabulators. The town, I think, did a good thing. We weren't the first ones to buy. We're going to be closer to the last ones to buy because the systems changed 4 years ago. We let everybody else get the bugs out. That's not a reference to anything else. I'm sorry for that. Freudian slip. But this is an appropriate time to do this. And again, it replaces the existing equipment that we have.
Okay.
Further debate under Article 20. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 21. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money for engineering services to prepare shovel-ready plans and specifications for various water system improvements and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 21, Water Department Water Main Design. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $300,000 be transferred from retained earnings in the Water Enterprise Fund for this purpose.
Motions are made under Article 21. It's $300,000, and it's proposed to be taken from the Water Enterprise Fund for this purpose. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 22. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds from free cash to purchase the following vehicles and to act fully thereon. 1 Ford Expedition, $47,000. 1 Ford Police Utility, $55,000. 1 Ford Police Utility, $55,000. Those are estimated prices. And to further authorize a trade-in or sale of the following old vehicles towards the purchase price where the Board of Selectmen finds that the vehicle cannot be utilized elsewhere in town. And that's 3 vehicles as listed in the warrant. Mr. Chori.
Article 22, purchase and equip vehicles for the police department. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $157,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion made under Article 22. It's $157,000. It's proposed to be taken from free cash. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 23. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds or borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase 2 Ford F-150 pickup trucks. The 2 pickup trucks will replace a 2010 Ford Ranger and a 2013 Ford Taurus, and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 23, Water Department Vehicles. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $90,000 be transferred from retained earnings in the Water Enterprise Fund for this purpose.
Motion under Article 23 is accept and adopt. The sum is $90,000, to be transferred from retained earnings in the Water Enterprise Fund. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 24. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to fund fiscal year 2022 snow and ice deficit account and act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 24, fund the snow and ice deficit. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $271,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose. And I would just like to make one comment. The warrant records the votes as 6-4-1 against, and that 1 against was a mistake. It was 7-0.
And here I thought Angelo was going to give up, stand up and give an impassioned speech against the article. Motion before you under Article 24 is accept and adopt. The sum is $271,000. It's proposed to be taken from free cash. Is there any debate? Yes, ma'am.
Annie Haven, I'm just wondering, from Mellow Lane, I'm just wondering why it's called a deficit account. Are we in debt from this year, snow removal? Yes.
Mr. Powers. Why is it called a deficit account, and are we in debt on this account?
So first, Mr. Moderator, I may eventually look to my right to seek an assist from the Public Works Director to bail me out. Snow and ice is the only category, one of the very few categories, that the Commonwealth lets communities spend in deficit, because you don't know during your fiscal year, on this lovely cold February day that it was, 52 degrees today, you don't know what your snow and ice is going to be. So you are allowed to deficit spend it. And so this is a boilerplate or standard article that we do year over year, and that dollar amount reflects what our costs are for present year snow and ice removal. How did I do, Link? Sure. He says thumbs up, so it must be okay. Thank you.
So this is a deficit, and this was last year, and we're paying for it. That's how it's done. Any further debate on the motion? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 25. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or borrow in accordance with Chapter 44 of the general laws or any other authorizing authority the sum of $700,000 to fund the road maintenance program as requested in the capital plan for FY23. The appropriation authorized by this vote shall not take effect until the town votes to exempt from the limitation on total taxes imposed by General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, Prop 2.5, the amounts required to pay the principal of and interest on any borrowing authorized under this article. Mr. Chori.
Article 25, Road Maintenance Program. I move the town appropriate the sum of $700,000 to fund the road maintenance program and all costs incidental and related thereto, as requested in the capital plan for fiscal 23. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $700,000 and to issue bonds and notes, therefore, for the pursuant to the General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to expend all funds available for this project, and to take other action necessary or convenient to carry out the project, provided, however, that the appropriation and borrowing authorized by this vote should not take effect until the town votes to exempt from the limitations on total taxes imposed by General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, Proposition 2.5, amounts required to pay the principal and interest of the borrowing authorized by this note. 2/3 vote required.
Okay, so the motion under Article 25 is accept and adopt. This is a borrowing. It proposes to borrow the $700,000 to undertake the road maintenance program. And the borrowing is specifically contingent upon a debt exclusion ballot question that will be before the voters at the election coming up. Mr. Powers.
I was simply going to say that that question is question one of the three questions that we have on the ballot. Thank you.
Gentleman here.
Yes, Steve Noyes. I think the Highway Department does a fantastic job in doing what they can with the money they have for the town. My question is that you're talking about $700,000 from the Chapter 90 funds. We all know that state funds are very poor when they come back to replace that money. It has happened in the years past. Will the $700,000 that we're going to be asked to appropriate, will that be enough to do what jobs the Highway Department wants to do if we don't get that money? And the second question, money, is the Highway Department looking to spend $1 million for each year for the next 5 years on road maintenance?
All right, there were several questions there, so Mr. Powers, you want to respond?
The first
DPW Director. Link.
Lynn Cooper, DPW Director. No objections? No. Yes, that's correct. We have local money that we refer to as $700,000 debt exclusion, and we get $700,000 in Chapter 90 money. That money has already been approved by the governor, and we will have that for next fiscal year. That comes through like clockwork. The second part of your question?
We plan on spending
Yes.
$1 million for the next 5 years.
Yes. We have recently revamped the plan in a major way, in that we are now trying to put new drainage structures in front of the sewer project. The last thing you want to do is have a new road paved over with 20, 30-year-old drainage systems that you inevitably are going to have to dig up new pavement to replace. So that is the major focus over the next few years in staying ahead of the sewering project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Thane Welsh from Precinct 2. I take it the Chapter 90 funds are the taxes we all pay for every gallon of gas? Road use taxes?
Mr. Hooper, again, DPW Director. And I had forgotten you were from Brewster. But there was no objection. Go ahead.
I tried. Yes, that is all our gas tax money. So when you gas up at the pump, a portion of that is what funds the state's Chapter 90 program.
And I'd just like to know why we're not getting more back. All right, what are you guys doing talking to the State House about getting more monies back? We create more money for the state than anywhere else in the state of Massachusetts. The Cape does. And I want to know why we're not getting more money back. And I want to know what my town selectmen, my town fathers are doing about getting us a little bit more money back. Thank you.
Further debate on the motion under Article 25. Yes, ma'am.
I was just looking for clarification about whether the Chapter 90 funds will be happening every year for the next 5 years, or is it just for this year, and next year we'll be looking at 1.4 total?
Mr. Hooper. Still no objection.
The Chapter 90 money has been fairly level and is slightly under $700,000 this year. There's a very complicated formula the state uses with some employment and housing values to come by that, with road miles being one of those, but it's been very steady, right around the $700,000 mark.
Thank you.
Further debate under Article 25. Looks like you're ready for a vote. This borrowing requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Again, the borrowing is in the amount of $700,000 to be reimbursed under the Chapter 91 program, and it's subject to a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion ballot question. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. I rule that it did get the necessary 2/3 majority and passes. On to Article 26. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sufficient sum of money to purchase and equip the following vehicles. A Ford F-350 utility body, $80,000, six-wheel dump truck, $48,450, and a Mack tractor, $170,000, to authorize a trade-in or sale of the following old vehicles towards the purchase price, and the old vehicles are listed in the warrant. Mr. Chori.
Article 26, purchase and equip vehicles for the Department of Public Works. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $298,450 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 26 is accept and adopt. The sum is $298,450 and is proposed to be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Is there any debate?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I know the Ford F-150 needs replacement, there's no question about it, but I see the replacement truck is a Ford 350. I understand there are three models. The F-150 is a full-size pickup truck, has an aluminum body, never is going to rust out. F-250 is a big, much bigger, could rust out. 350 also is not aluminum, could rust out, so we could be meeting the same problem again in the future. I'd like the explanation for why the jump from F-150, which is an aluminum body, full-size pickup truck for maintenance service, to an F-350, which is a big mother. Could somebody please explain that?
Yes, Mr. Hooper. Question, why are we going from a 150 to a 350?
Still no objection, I tell you.
Still no objection.
The 150 we have is very antiquated. It's a very light-duty pickup. They physically may look the same, but the gentleman is absolutely correct. The 350 is a heavier-duty truck. It allows us, this truck is used for vehicle maintenance. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need to get closer to the mic, Link.
All right. This truck is used for the vehicle maintenance department, and we service all the fire department's vehicles, police department's vehicles, and so forth. This particular vehicle is used to go rescue other vehicles when we have problems and breakdowns. Okay? Also, they want to have this as a utility body so they can carry a lot more tools than they're currently able to with their 150. And finally, it would be equipped to do plowing, which we currently don't do. We always need more plows, and a 350 would allow that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering when it comes to replacing vehicles, if you have looked into buying electrical vehicles and saving on gas and maintenance.
Question is, are you looking at electric vehicles?
We have not. There are some very limited vehicles. We usually purchase most of our vehicles on state or federal contracts. There's some economies of scale in doing that. They have some smaller cars like Town Hall. In fact, Town Hall did purchase an electric vehicle a couple years ago. These larger vehicles aren't readily available to my knowledge.
Ford has electrical trucks, so I suggest that you start looking into them.
You need to be struck by lightning, I guess, Link. Further debate under Article 26. Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 27, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase and equip the following vehicles and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 27, purchase and equip vehicles for the fire department. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $130,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 27 is accept and adopt. The sum is $130,000 to be transferred from free cash. Is there any debate? Yes, sir.
Lewis Parker, Moss Hill Road. On Article 23, we're purchasing a truck for $45,000. Why is this truck $65,000?
Anyone from the fire department here on that one? Yes, Chief.
David Blank, Fire Chief. These are both estimates that we have from the retailers that comes with the trucks as fully equipped. So it'd be from the supplier with lights, package, radios, all the equipment that would go in them. So that's what drives the cost.
Thank you.
Further debate on the the motion under Article 27, which is accept and adopt. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 28, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase and equip the following vehicles and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 28, purchase and equip a mini pumper for the fire department. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $22,500 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 28 is accept and adopt. The sum is $22,500 and is proposed to be transferred from free cash. Is there any debate?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, sir.
Again,
Mr.
Steve
Noyes.
Noyes. We've just spent a ton of money out of free cash. What's left in that account?
Anybody keeping a running tally of the free cash expenditures? Yeah, Mr. Noyes, our finance director, just stepped out for a minute, but as soon as she comes back, I'll get the tally on free cash and make sure you get it.
Very good, thank you.
Right. Any further debate on the motion under Article 28? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 29. This is the first, I believe, of the Community Preservation Committee articles. And we normally require a report from the Community Preservation Committee that they have considered all of the community preservation articles and voted to recommend them positively to town meeting in the form in which they appear. I know the Chair of Community Preservation is not available this evening. The Vice Chair, Kathy Green, is she available?
Mary Maslowski, West Harwich.
Yes. A member of the CPC committee.
A member of the CPC. On behalf of Chairman Nixon and the rest of our members, I can report that the Community Preservation Committee met at duly noticed public meetings, and we considered the articles included in the town meeting warrant and voted to approve each of them. It includes Article 29, which is the standard article for designating the various buckets. Article 30, which is the vote for the land bank debt. Article 31, which is the East Harwich Union Cemetery Gravestone Preservation Project. Article 32, which is the part-time housing coordinator. Article 33, which is the Affordable Housing Trust. Article 34, which is Phase 2 of the Natural Heritage Trail Boardwalk Project. Article 35, which is the Penrose LLC Cape Cod 5 Housing Project. Article 36, which is the Pickleball Basketball Project at Brooks Park. And Article 37, which is the proposed purchase of conservation restriction at the Spruce Woods project.
Thank you, Mary Muslowski. So we now have the CPC report on all the articles, so we'll start with Article 29. See if the town will vote to appropriate the following sums of money from the FY 2022 estimated annual revenues of the Harwich Community Preservation Act Fund as required by General Laws, Chapter 44B and Chapter 149, Section 298 of the Acts of 2004 as follows. And then it's a sum of money for open space, a sum of money for historic reserves, a sum of money for community housing, and a sum of money for the undesignated fund balance. There are 4 there in the article. Mr. Chori.
Article 29, appropriate sums of money from fiscal year 2023 estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Act Fund. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Motion's been made under Article 29 to accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 30. See if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation Act funds $221,525 from FY 2021 certified undesignated fund balance to fund the payment of land bank debt service and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 30, Community Preservation Act, Land Bank Debt Service. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $221,525 be funded from fiscal year 2021 certified undesignated fund balance, land bank debt obligations, FY 23 land bank debt of $221,525, FY 24 land bank debt of $166,650.
So the motion under Article 30 is to accept and adopt the sum of $221,525 to be funded from the FY 2021 certified undesignated fund balance of land debt obligations, which there are 2, land bank debt 221,525, and for fiscal year 24, land bank debt $166,650. Is there any debate? Yes, sir.
This money that we are asked to put forward, and this is for property that we've already bought. This is for property that we've already agreed to buy. Is that the question? Is that what we're paying for?
This is debt for property we already bought.
Yeah. And this is for open land that the town has purchased, right?
Right, that we've already purchased. And,
right.
And we're paying off the bond.
And we're paying for it, right?
That's correct.
Has the town ever done a study of how much taxes that land that we've taken out of the tax roll, how much taxes that land could have made us or would have made us if they remained on the tax roll?
Somebody want to address that? Anybody up front? Anybody from Open Space? Mr. DaCosta, Finance Committee.
Thank you. At the time that most of this land was purchased, we were in a growth period in the town. The town was growing extremely quickly in population, and a lot of this land was open space that we purchased to try and quell the growth in the town, and it worked. We went up to 12,000 people, and we stayed at 12,000 people for 20 years based on the land that we purchased during that time. So we were not doing it for any other reason other than to try and quell the amount of money we were going to have to spend on...
But we as the town bought that property from someone who owned it.
We did.
And those people were paying taxes on it. Is that correct?
Yes. They were. It was removed from the tax rolls.
That's correct.
Sir, if I may, the question before the meeting tonight is, are we going to pay the indebtedness that we've already incurred?
I'm sure we should. The problem comes is that you're going to be asking us for more monies to take more land out of the tax.
And when that article comes up, happy to have you raise your issue and get a response.
I think I will. Thank you.
So we're on Article 30. Mr. Kukunis.
Young lady over.
Oh, yes, Mary, go ahead. I didn't see you.
Mr. Moderator, Mary Milslowski, West Harwich. Just a point of clarification. The motion is strictly to pay the $221,525, which is this year's land bank debt, which is due. I believe the FY24 was listed as a point of information for the body.
It's information only. It's not part of the motion.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for the body.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for correcting that. Mr. Kukunis.
Yeah, further on that note, prior to having the Community Preservation Act, we had something called Land Bank, and back then we were buying land, as Mr. DaCosta said, and the monies that were taken out were put aside for Land Bank. When the Community Preservation Act took over, we now appropriate the money to pay that land bank debt. My question specifically is, there can't be a lot left on this. We're going to probably see this go away pretty soon. Does anybody up there have an idea of how much longer existing, specifically, land bank debt will be?
Do you know the answer to that? Thank you. Was that a plant? Did you let Larry know you were going to ask that question earlier tonight,
I'll probably
Leo?
get a question I know the answer to.
Mr. Valentine.
It was 2024.
We've got 1 year left. Further debate under Article 30. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 31. See if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation Act funds $118,800 from the FY 2021 Certified Historic Preservation Reserve to fund the Town of Harwich East Harwich Union Cemetery Gravestone Preservation Project. Any funds left unspent in this article are to be returned to the Community Preservation Act Funds Historic Preservation Reserve and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 31, Community Preservation Act, East Harwich Union Cemetery Gravestone Preservation Project. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sum of $118,800 be funded from the FY21 Certified Historical Preservation Reserve.
Motion under Article 31 is accept and adopt. The sum is $118,800, and it's to be funded from the Historic Reserve. Any debate on the motion under Article 31? Mrs. Foster.
Yes, I wanted to know what this $118,000 is for exactly.
Cemetery Administrator.
So first, I'm going to give you a brief explanation. The East Harwich Union Cemetery is a visible and cultural reminder of its past. The earliest founding members of this town are important to this town's heritage. We have many people that walk in this cemetery visiting and doing genealogical research, as this cemetery has many Mayflower descendants buried on its grounds. There is a need to make sure that these grounds are kept safe. Many of the stones are broken or are face down and unreadable due to biological growth covering the memorials. Many of the memorials are in pieces and will need to be reconstructed. The cemetery has a significant amount of historic monuments that are over 200 years old. The Union Cemetery's earliest gravestone is from 1797, and it inters a Revolutionary War soldier, Ebenezer Eldridge, who died on the 25th of February, 1797. Preserving and stabilizing these memorials to prevent further damage of this historic cemetery will ensure that future generations can experience this historic burial ground. There are 45 monuments that are in need of repair due to fractures or damage. There is 158 that need to be reset. They need new foundations, 108 headstones, 2 corner markers, and 48 footstones are in need to be reset or the foundations repaired. These monuments are leaning and if they are not treated, will soon topple over, and it'll be even more issues in the cemetery. We have 265 memorials that will be cleaned, consolidated, including the headstones and footstones. And the slates that are in the cemetery right now, those ones will just be consolidated. They will not be cleaned of any of the biological growth.
So none of this is covered under the cemetery budget as it exists now? There's no maintenance allocated for the cemetery?
This is, there is no maintenance for this particulars, for upkeep and maintenance of the stones, no.
Okay, thank you.
Further debate on the motion under Article 31. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 32. See if the town will vote to appropriate from Community Preservation Act funds $50,000 from the FY 2021 Certified Community Housing Reserve to fund the Town of Harwich part-time housing coordinator position. Any funds left unspent from this article are to be returned to the Community Preservation Act Fund, Community Housing Reserve, and act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 32, Community Preservation Act Part-Time Housing Coordinator. I move this article be accepted and adopted and printed in the warrant in the sum of $50,000 to be funded from the FY 23 Certified Community Housing Reserve. But I have a question. Second. Joe.
So the motion before you is accept and adopt this article and the sum of $50,000 to be funded from the FY 2021 Community Housing Reserve. Mr. Howell, Selectman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I also serve as the Vice Chair of the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. This was put in at a time when we didn't know whether we were going to get the money to have a full-time housing advocate, which you voted earlier. It's still here. We'd like you to vote for it, except our intention is, to the extent that we can recruit the other position, this money will go back to the CPC in order for them to put it back into the affordable housing bucket for reallocation in future years.
Mrs. Foster.
$50,000 for a part-time job. It's $100,000 full-time for advocating for affordable housing. We don't have any affordable housing. We do have some buildings in this town that could be used for affordable housing, but we're going to use it for something else probably. I don't think we should vote to have this position right now when they'd be paid to do a whole lot of nothing, because there isn't any housing that's affordable.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 32? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 33. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $31,270.93 from FY 2021 Certified Community Housing Reserves, $210,000 from anticipated revenues of FY 2023, $258,729.07 from FY 2021 Certified Undesignated Fund Balance for a total of $500,000 to fund the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. Mr. Chori.
Article 33, Community Preservation Act Affordable Housing Trust. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. The sums of $31,270.93 to be funded from the FY 21 Certified Housing Reserve of $210,000 to be funded from the fiscal year 2023 anticipated revenues, and $258,729.07 be funded from the FY 2021 Certified Undesignated Fund Balance.
Second.
Motion under Article 33 is accept and adopt, and all of the amounts are the same as in the warrant for a total of $500,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust. Any debate under Article 33? Yes, ma'am.
The last time we had a meeting in this room, I was a lot younger. But I had brought up the fact that when I moved back to the Cape, I grew up in Harwich, but I went off and taught at University of Pennsylvania for 40 years. But I came back home, and one of the things I noticed when I began bicycling around the area is the number of houses that looked pretty solid, but obviously had nobody living in them. And at first, I got my lawnmower out and would go to these houses and mow the lawns around the outside in the hope that it would make it pleasant looking and somebody might buy them, because I knew people needed housing. Over the course of the 10 years since I retired, I have watched a number of these houses end up with red X's on their doors, and then they've been knocked down. I had hoped some years ago that the Affordable Housing Trust would begin to look into purchasing some of these houses before they fell apart and make them available to families who need a home. I still believe that there are a lot of houses on the Cape that could well be a home for families. I've run into a number of them. I ran into one over in Dennis the other day, this wonderful old man who said, oh, that was my family home, and I grew up there, but now I live up down the road in a little, 2x4 house. And we said, well, what's happening to your house? Oh, it's just going to fall down. And that drives me crazy. I mean, it just seemed to me we could do better than this. I know that isn't directly related to this particular item on the warrant, but I had kept hoping that because we began to have an affordable housing trust, I would learn that some of these houses had been purchased and refurbished or given to Habitat to refurbish and put a little ease on the housing problem. A few years ago, I had a friend who became homeless, and she came and lived with me for 5 months because she needed to have a place to live. And the two of us began running around looking for a place that she could afford to buy. Whoever said there's nothing available is close to right. There's nothing that people who don't have a ridiculous amount of money can afford to buy. And then there are these houses that are sitting there, falling down. I could name 6 of them that I'm still seeing standing. So do we have to have this waste?
Mr. Howell, you want to respond to that on behalf of the trust? No. So Mr. Kokonis is next.
Mr. Howell will respond to, though. Thank you. Could you give me an idea of, we're transferring $500,000 or giving $500,000 from the Community Preservation Act to the Housing Trust? Can you let us know what the account balance is of the Housing Trust and what purchases you are planning on or have made? Or are you going to use this money to maybe satisfy the last speaker's concerns?
Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That I will answer. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know the Housing Trust hasn't been working on the problem for all that much of time. But this past year, we were able to be extremely successful in purchasing part of the assets of the Jimmy Marceline estate near what used to be Exit 10 on Route 124. It's over 14 acres there. We spent most of the money, and Carol can give an account balance on that, based on the fact that we had it available, which is the whole purpose of a trust, to have an account to be able to jump on opportunities when they provide themselves. In terms of rehabilitation, we haven't quite finished our action plan yet. That's not off the table, but it is not a terribly effective way to spend the money either. If we spent $500,000 on 2 units as opposed to building maybe 10 or 15 units, the economics of that elude me. We still have to develop that property, which is going to cost us millions of dollars, and it's going to involve having partners who do the developing with us. The point is that we have to replenish this fund in order to be able to make split-second decisions in between town meetings. This gives us the liquidity to be able to make those purchases. Without this, we basically are meeting for nothing.
So, Mrs. Coppola, do you have the balance of the Affordable Housing Trust Ms. Kukunis asked for?
The balance as of April 30th was $416,901.
416,000. Leo, did you get that? Right. Further debate, this gentleman here.
Yes, my name is Ricardo. I live in East Harwich. It seems to me in today's real estate market, you're never going to have enough money to buy affordable housing. So wouldn't it be good to use the property that, let's say, the town took over for various reasons? Maybe they didn't pay their taxes, or all that land that they're going to find out unknown owners, and use that property and say, we'll give you the property free, you have to just get a mortgage from the bank and that type of deal. That would be
So the question from this gentleman, Mr. Howell, to the extent it's a trust issue, will any of the money that, or any of the land, I should say, that the town may end up owning as a result of the tax title investigations be utilized for housing in the future?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Everything is on the table, if I didn't make myself clear before, but we still need a bucket of money to be able to pursue these things. We did purchase 14-plus acres on Pleasant Lake Avenue where we would build something new. Are we going to be willing to actually stake real estate? Yes. Are we willing to do rehabilitation? Yes. We're willing to do just about anything it'll take to be able to move forward. A lot of these things can't happen within a year, but we still have to build up a fund balance to be able to make it happen.
So, sir, if the town ends up owning some of that tax title property that we will appropriate money to research, it will come before the meeting as to whether or not we use it for housing, but it can be brought to you. Further debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote on Article 33. It's community preservation funds. The amount's $500,000, and it's proposed to be transferred to your Affordable Housing Trust. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 34. See if the town vote to appropriate $75,000 from FY 2021 certified undesignated fund balance to fund Phase 2 of the Natural Heritage Trail Boardwalk Project. Any funds left unspent from this article are to be returned to the CPA Act Fund undesignated fund balance and act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 34, Community Preservation Act, Phase 2 of the Natural Heritage Trail Boardwalk Project. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $75,000 to be funded from the FY 21 certified undesignated fund balance.
Motion under Article 34 is accept and adopt. The sum is $75,000 to be funded from the undesignated fund balance of CPA. Any debate? Yes, Mr. Noyes.
Again, Steve Noyes. $75,000, is any of this boardwalk going to be ADA usable? American with Disabilities Act usable? For people in a wheelchair or an electric wheelchair?
Mr. Locke, you want to respond to that? Question of whether the boardwalk will be accessible.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Locke, Executive Director of the nonprofit Harwich Conservation Trust, the local land trust founded in 1988 by citizens from all walks of life trying to preserve land that protects wildlife habitat, water resources, scenic views, and walking trails. So to answer the gentleman's question, this particular section is not going to be linked to an ADA accessible trail. However, if you look on the inside cover of the newsletter here, at the map on the upper half of the page, you will see Phase 1 that was funded a year ago by town meeting voters is designated for Americans with Disability Act standard wheelchair accessible loop up to a half mile. At some point in the future, if funds and resources allow, then the trust could consider extending the wheelchair accessible access easterly to the boardwalk. The boardwalk will be wide enough to accommodate wheelchairs, but the intervening land will not support wheelchair access at this time, just the Phase 1 half-mile loop that's shown on the map.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Any further debate on the motion under Article 34? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 35. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $100,000 from FY 2021 certified undesignated fund balance to fund the Penrose LLC Cape Cod 5 community housing project located in Orleans. Any funds left unspent from this article are to be returned to CPA fund undesignated fund balance. Mr. Chori.
Article 35, Community Preservation Act, Penrose LLC / Cape Cod 5 Housing Project. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant in the sum of $100,000 be funded from FY 21 certified undesignated fund balance.
Motion under Article 35 is accept and adopt. The sum is $100,000. Is there any debate? Yes, Mrs. Foster.
Okay, this money's going to Orleans. We really need it here in Harwich. We have a couple of buildings that are coming up that we're targeting for other uses that could be put to use for affordable housing, apartments, et cetera. The schoolhouses, I know they're looking at doing art stuff, but I think food, clothing, and shelter are the three most important things that we should be providing to our residents. And housing is one of them, and I think we need to focus that money on Harwich and on the buildings we have that could be used for that. So I would like to say no, let's not spend our money in Orleans.
Further debate under Article 35. Mr. McManus?
This is one of those projects or one of those needs that, like our problems with wastewater, really don't know any town boundaries as limiting factors. The housing crisis that we're seeing here in Harwich is the same as what they're seeing in Chatham and Brewster and Orleans. To the extent that we can help our neighboring towns with their housing programs, I'm sure in the future when we go to move to develop some of our property for assisted housing, they will be helpful to us also. I'd urge that folks vote for this and show a lot of heart.
Selectman Anderson. Mary Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Ed, for saying part of what I was going to say. It is a regional problem, and I think that I trust the members of our Community Preservation Committee who review a lot of requests, and I trust their judgment that this is a good investment. We don't have a project that's anywhere near as far along as that Cape Cod 5 former bank. So there are potential for some people who work in Harwich to have a place to live in Orleans.
Further debate. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Kathy Green, East Harwich, Vice Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I just wanted to say that the committee supported this project and voted to approve it. We're in favor of a regionalized effort to address the housing crisis. We're years away from brick and mortar buildings in the town of Harwich, and just because if you work in Harwich doesn't mean that you live in Harwich, and et cetera. So we're very much in support of this project.
Further debate on the motion under Article 35. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Article 36. See if the town will vote to appropriate $50,997 from FY 2021 certified undesignated fund balance and $194,503 from FY 2023 anticipated revenue for a total appropriation of $245,000 to fund the town of Harwich pickleball basketball project at Brooks Park. Any funds left unspent from this article are to be returned to CPA Act Fund. Mr. Chori.
Article 36, Community Preservation Act Pickleball/Basketball Project at Brooks Park. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed on the warrant, and the sums of $50,997 be funded from FY21 certified undesignated fund balance, and $194,503 to be funded from the FY23 anticipated revenue. Note, the two sums equal $245,500, not the $245,000 as written in the article.
Okay, the motion under Article 36 is accept and adopt, and as Mr. Chori pointed out, the total of the two sums being proposed to be transferred under the motion equal $245,500 for this purpose. Is there any debate? Mr. Koukounis.
I just have a question because I've seen it a couple of times now. $194,500 from the 2023 anticipated revenue. So are we not spending this money? We don't have it in land bank right now. We're anticipating that we're going to make X amount of dollars in FY23, and we're spending it before we have it, and before it's been put into the very first article that we voted, those certain categories, the appropriations category of 2023.
So the question for Mr. Koukounis is the second part of the motion, the 194 from the FY 2023 anticipated revenue. Question is that money on hand or money to be received? Our Finance Director, Carol Coppola.
These are the funds that will be raised with the upcoming 3% that's assigned to CPA funds. So these are monies yet to be received.
Just so I understand, though, it is money that we are planning on making through the taxation of the CPA added additional fund on my taxes, but for FY23. So we don't have it yet, but we're going to be anticipating it. We know we're going to get it.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. The only other question I have, if I may, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Koukounis, you have the floor.
I wish... I'm not really as familiar and have the grasp on CPA and dealing with CPA funds, but from what I was understood, and maybe we already did that, we have to allocate those monies into a bucket, if you will, first, and then allocate them out to a project. So I assume that's what we did when we did Article 29 by putting those anticipated funds in those different categories for FY23. Am I assuming correctly?
I'm going to let Ms. Coppola respond to that question.
So the town has to allocate a minimum of 10% to those buckets, and that's what you did in Article 29.
Thank you.
Further debate? Yes, ma'am. You were next.
Emma Jane Proudfoot, East Harwich. I just think it's important to mention that it seems like a lot of you here care about affordable housing, which is so important, yet there's many of you here tonight that didn't pass the 3 articles before me that we were speaking about, but we also then want to spend $250,000 for pickleball courts. My husband and I were fortunate enough to purchase a home before the COVID boom, and we talk about all the time how blessed we are. And many of our friends and family members cannot do so, but we want to spend $250,000 for pickleball courts. I think you should also look around the room tonight and notice that I'm probably the youngest one in here. So if that doesn't say something right there. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, Thane Welsh again from Precinct 2. Sounds like a jail, but... Anyhow, $245,500. Are we going to put a basketball court there? A new one? Are we going to put a new pickleball court there? What is that money for?
Somebody from CPA want to address that question? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. I'm a resident of Yarmouth, though, just to let you know.
Any objection to our Recreation Director, who's not a voter, answering that question? There's no objection.
So the plan for the money is to add 4 new pickleball courts in extension to what we have now. The basketball courts, right now we have 1 full court and 1 half court. This would extend our half court to a 2nd full court, so we'd have 2 full courts. That's where the money would be going.
All right.
Further debate on the motion under Article 36. Mr. Noyes.
Yes, I want to kind of back on Ms. Proudfoot's thing. We have affordable housing that we need. We're going to asphalt over $250,000. Spending on the asphalt to go it over. I know that people like pickleball. I know that people like basketball. When I was a kid, I couldn't always use the court because someone else was using it. What happened to people having to wait to use the facilities? I think the money could be spent somewhere else. Thank you.
Further debate? Yes, sir.
Bob Weiser, 6 Birch Drive. I've been listening politely to a lot of negative responses from my fellow citizens tonight. And I can remember when I first moved to town a mere 22 years ago, coming to town meeting and actually having some of the same reservations. Why is my tax money being used for golf courses? I don't play golf. Why is my tax money being used for people to have places to tie up their yachts in the harbor? I don't have a yacht. And I don't play pickleball either. But there are reasons why we have a planning cycle and try to look at our future capital expenditures in advance so we don't find ourselves with equipment that all falls apart at the same time and then we have to scrap to find ways to pay for it. We have a Community Preservation Act that requires us to apply some of the money to recreation and some of it to conservation and some of it to housing, etc. So while I'm not sure how crazy I am about allocating money to pickleball, it is what the people on the volunteers on our Community Preservation Committee have recommended to use with that recreational portion of the money this year. And maybe we should apply it to housing, except we can't apply all of it to housing because that's not one of our options. We can only apply some of it to housing. And we are applying it to housing. And that's as it should be. So I just want to encourage the people who have been at our meeting and have every right to ask all the questions they're asking, keep in mind that as a big picture, our community is doing a really good job of trying to address the problems we face. We have a lot of volunteers who work on these committees and put a lot of time into trying to figure out how to use these resources such as they are wisely. Let's support their recommendations. Let's continue to educate ourselves, and let's be nice to each other. Thank you.
Selectman Anderson.
Well, I really didn't have to come tonight because Mr. McManus and Mr. Weiser have just done my job. Yes, that's the recreation budget, and if you don't know any pickleballers, they're a pretty enthusiastic group, and it's equally important to keep our seniors physically active. So I urge you to support this portion.
Yes, ma'am.
Alice Kelly again. One of the things I notice when I drive home from meetings like this, I go up Route 28. No, not 28. What is it, 39? Is there's a, I don't know whether it's a shuffleboard court or whether it's a bocce court at the edge of Brooks Park. And I always notice the number of people who are out there having a really good time playing whatever it is they play. I tend towards reading books and playing with my dogs, but I really think people need to get out and make a community. And at first when I saw this thing about saying let's play pickleball, I thought, oh, for goodness sakes, pickleball. What about in the Maslow pyramid of needs? Where is pickleball? Well, the fact is, it's in there somewhere. Because people need to get together with each other, and they need to talk to each other, and they need to kind of be comfortable with each other. And my betcha is that there are people out there playing that game that are on very different political points of view, but they come together to play bocce. And so I think, we need that. We need to get people out of their houses and out into the community and be able to be friendly with each other. I don't think we do enough of that. I mean, I know my neighbors' dogs' names, but I don't always know their names. So I think anything that brings you into a more community-spirited frame of mind is a good thing, and it's not that much money for that good.
Further debate on the motion under Article 36.
A lot of
Mrs.
love in the
Foster,
room tonight.
Mrs. Foster.
A lot of love in the room tonight. And all these things are important, and in times of wealth and an abundance, we can afford to do them all. We are not in a time of wealth and abundance right now. If you're paying attention to what's going on in our economy, we really need to think about what we're spending. Pickleball is great. I know a lot of people come to Harwich to play pickleball. We've already got some courts. I know we want more, and I know we're trying to grow our activities out there. There's a lot you can do in Harwich that doesn't cost you anything, by the way. Talk to the guys at the Harwich Conservation Trust. There's something great going on with what they're doing every single day. When you're having a hard time paying your mortgage, your wife does not get a diamond tennis bracelet. And we're all acting like everybody can get a diamond tennis bracelet this year. Maybe they can. Maybe we're just all going to dig in our pockets and everybody gets what everybody wants. Sooner or later, we have to start making some choices. And I'd rather, sorry folks, put this money to food, clothing, and shelter than pickleball. And I know you're all going to want the pickleball and spend another $250,000. That's okay. We all get to vote. One of these days, we're going to care more about putting shelter over people's heads. That's all I got to say.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 36? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 37. See if the town will vote to authorize the Conservation Commission with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to acquire, by gift or purchase, for water quality protection, conservation, passive recreation purposes, a conservation restriction pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 84, Sections 31 through 33, on approximately 75 acres of undeveloped land off of Spruce Road, located within the Six Ponds District of Critical Planning Concern, DCPC. Further described in the Town of Harwich Real Estate and Open Space Committee's application to the Community Preservation Committee, entitled Spruce Woods Project, dated September 22nd, 2021, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk. And to appropriate $604,486 from FY 2021 certified open space reserves, $210,000 from FY 23 anticipated reserves, and $135,514 from the FY 21 certified undesignated fund balance, for a total appropriation of $950,000 to fund said acquisition, provided any funds unspent from this article are to be returned to CPA fund, and to further authorize the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary or convenient on behalf of the town to effect said acquisition. Mr. Chori.
Article 37, Community Preservations Act, Purchase Conservation Restriction at the Spruce Woods Project. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and the sums of $604,486 be funded from the FY 21 Certified Open Space Reserve, $210,000 from the FY 2023 anticipated revenue, and $135,514 from fiscal 2021 certified undesignated fund balance. Because of this funding source, this acquisition is CPA funds, and no eminent domain is being authorized. The quorum of the vote is simply a majority.
So the motion under Article 37 is accept and adopt. It is the same amount as listed in the article, for a total of $950,000 from CPA funds for this purpose. Debate under Article 37, Mr. Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Locke, Harwich Conservation Trust. Thank you, voters, for considering this opportunity. I'd just like to provide a little background about how we got here tonight to present this opportunity to preserve the largest remaining undeveloped tract on the Lower Cape. Just so happens to be located in Harwich's own six-pond special district of critical planning concern. So the land is located at the end of Spruce Road. You see in the town meeting warrant that it's titled Spruce Woods Project. Harwich Conservation Trust, it's on the cover of the newsletter. Many of you received this. We're calling it the Six Ponds Great Woods Project. Parallels Route 6 between exits 82 and 85, formerly exits 10 and 11. The property's old cart paths and walking trails connect to adjoining town conservation land that ultimately links to more than 240 acres of Hawks Nest State Park. The Town of Harwich Real Estate and Open Space Committee submitted a $950,000 Community Preservation Act funding request to the Select Board and the Community Preservation Committee. Both boards voted unanimously in favor of putting their request before town meeting. Town Finance Committee also supported the project, as well as many other town boards, Conservation Commission, Water Department, and others. If you, the voters, approve this $950,000 contribution, then that leaves $2,050,000 left for Harwich Conservation Trust to raise to reach the total $3 million project goal by December 31st of this year. Now, Community Preservation Act funding for open space acquisitions requires a conservation restriction. And so the town would hold the conservation restriction over this land and also possibly hold it jointly with the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation if that entity pledges funds for the project as well. So if you're able to vote in favor of this project tonight, it would send a strong signal to the rest of the community and beyond that Town of Harwich voters are in favor of protecting this incredibly large landscape that's left. It's hard to believe that landscapes of this size are left in this day and age. To protect water quality to 3 of the 6 ponds. It's in the watershed to Aunt Edie's Pond, Walker's Pond, and Cornelius Pond. Protect wildlife habitat, and protect those walking trails that I mentioned that connect to an adjoining 300 acres of town and state conservation land. Thank you.
Further debate. So they're both pointing at each other. Mr. Welch?
Yes, I guess I'm going to be a little bit of pain in the tush. If the town had the money all at one time to purchase the property for $3 million from 6 or 7 different people that own the property, we would purchase it that one time, right? That would be, but what you don't understand is that we're purchasing it every year after that also, because that land comes off the tax rolls. I want to see open space. I want to see the water quality kept well in those areas. Do a lot of fishing there. I've grown up in this town. I graduated high school here. I've seen this town grow, and I've seen this town wither. All right? We do not create enough money to keep what we have together. If the town would tell the people that own this property, look, we'll cut back on your taxes, so you're not paying as much, but we need the taxes to stay afloat. All right? Just keep the woods open. Don't sell it to a developer. If you sell it to a developer, then let us have the first right of refusal. But we need the property on the tax rolls. That's 75 acres, and if this town treats its citizens like other towns. The more property you own, the more house lots you have, whether it's swampland or not. That swampland is divided up into house lots, and they're taxed on those house lots. Now, if you tax them on just buildable lots, rather than the swampland that they set against, maybe they'd have a little fighting chance to hold on to that open space. And that open space can remain in their family rather than being sold. I would vote against this.
Further debate. This gentleman here.
Yes, I'm Ricardo from East Harwich. Yeah, I hike out there all the time. I even hunted out there all the time. Is that $950,000 money we have? I mean, that doesn't come from the taxes? Is that something already available to buy to that land?
This is coming from
Okay.
CPA funds.
So, and the difference is going to be raised privately. That's not going to increase our taxes to get up to $3 million, correct?
This article is for $950,000.
All right.
All of which is coming from Community Preservation Act funds,
All right.
which are a special assessment on your taxes. And
So there's
have been designated for open space purposes by CPA, which is one of the uses that we have to make of CPA funds.
right.
The other, if you listen to Mr. Locke, the other $2.5 million to buy this property is going to be raised privately
Okay.
by the trust.
All right, so then we're not going to have any increase in the taxes, it looks like. I mean, not, okay. I'm all for it as long as you can still hunt there and stuff. But it does raise, the cost of housing in Harwich, but that's another issue. Okay, that's it.
Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dan Wolf. And my wife and I we got married in 1986. We lived in Chatham. We couldn't afford to stay there, so we came to the blue-collar alternative, which was Harwich. And all three of our daughters were born while we lived in Harwich. And as they were raised and came of age, the two most important places in their life was the Bell's Neck Conservation Area and the Six Ponds Conservation Area. And there was not a single time when we were walking those kids through those woods that one of them looked up at us and said, "Dad or Mom, how much real estate tax dollars were given up by this being a conservation area?" And I'm going to keep this really short. I want to thank the people a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations ago who had the foresight to create Bell's Neck and to set aside Six Ponds and to make it a DCPC. I want to thank those people because they had the vision of what created a place where we wanted to raise our 3 daughters and bring them of age. And I will tell you, their love of Cape Cod will put back so much more into this community in the years ahead than the tax dollars we're talking about, the theoretical tax dollars of what we might be giving up. And by the way, a developer or somebody in the town would tell you that the infrastructure and the cost of actually developing and maintaining that land would actually in the long run cost more than the real estate value brought in. So even from an economic standpoint, I did turn into a businessman over the years. Even if you look at the business and economics of this, it doesn't make sense. But relative to the generational legacy that we can leave future generations about this town, I will tell you from firsthand experience, it is a powerful, powerful opportunity, and I hope that the people here vote yes on this. Thank you.
Further debate? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Shovlin, East Harwich. I am chair of the Real Estate and Open Space Committee. First of all, I'd like to clear something up, maybe a little misunderstanding about CPA funds. But when a fund is designated for a specific purpose as open space or recreation, that money, if it is voted down at this meeting, just stays in that so-called bucket to be used for future. It cannot be used, recreation funds cannot be used for housing. So the idea that maybe if you vote no on something, that money can go towards housing or some other project. So a clearer understanding of how CPA money is used. Second of all, on this particular project, which Real Estate and Open Space unanimously supported and was supported by many of the committees in town and all of the Board of Selectmen and Conservation Commission and the CPA and the Finance Committee. One point on this $950,000 sounds like a lot of money, but open space funds from CPA have not been used in past several years, so amount has accumulated. Also, as maybe Mr. Locke can tell us about, there is a proposal for a land grant, and if that money is received, that could be up to $400,000, which would be returned to the town. So in fact, with that land grant, this $950 would go down to $550. And maybe Mr. Locke can further explain, Mr. Moderator, if you'd acknowledge him.
Do you want to address just that one issue? Because I've got other people who want to speak.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. So Ms. Shovlin refers to a state grant program called the Local Acquisitions for Natural Diversity Shorthand Land Grant. And municipalities can apply for these grants and receive a $400,000 maximum reimbursement. And we think the application will be quite competitive, submitted by the town. And she's right that if the town were to receive it, it would reduce the town's net cost from $950,000 to $550,000. That $400,000 grant is on a reimbursement basis from the state to the town. Those funds would be returned to the Community Preservation Act fund. So if you do the math on a per acre basis, per preserved acre basis, as a net cost to the town, that's $7,333 an acre net cost to the town.
This gentleman in the middle.
Sandy McClarty, East Harwich. I would first ask everyone to ask themselves what the Cape would be without the National Seashore if you eliminated that. I feel that it's a very important part of what makes Cape Cod, and this land, I feel like it will make a lasting difference, and it'll preserve the character of the Cape. The other point is one of limits. We have limits in everything. And so we oftentimes hear affordable housing pitted against conservation, and I feel that's a wrong place to start from. What we see is unaffordable homes, plowing through the woods. I believe that we have overdeveloped, and that is why we have to clean our water and do all of these things. And so in life we have limits. The Cape has boundaries. The ocean, they're very real boundaries, and we have to decide, make choices. And so I think, it might drive costs up, but we've already done that. We did that when we developed luxury homes, and we never seem to point the finger at them. I would like to support this. Thank you.
Ms. Finn, Margot Finn.
What I want to say is that opportunities like this don't come along very often. As Mike Locke said, this is the largest piece of unprotected open space on the Lower Cape remaining. And if it becomes developed, it's gone forever. This is part of a much larger network of valuable land for the town. It's one of the very few places where you can go and walk for 2 or 3 hours without running into civilization. There aren't very many places like that left on Cape Cod. And I think it would be a terrible tragedy for us to lose this opportunity, and a wonderful opportunity for all kinds of different users to be able to make use of this. It's right now that the trail network in there is used by people for horseback riding, for walking their dogs, for bird watching, for hunting, for taking their kayaks out on the ponds, all kinds of wonderful things that are really important part of life here on Cape Cod. 20 years ago, the town designated this area as a district of critical planning concern. This is the fulfillment of that vision, and I would really urge you to support it.
Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Moderator, Alan Thompson, Water Sewer Commissioner for several years, born and raised here. And this is like a dream come true. To turn this article down tonight would kind of be a regret. We abut this property with a well field. This is an opportunity for us to ensure that the straw that we have in the glass will continue to be fulfilled. It has 3 ponds in the area. For me, when I look at the map and I say, with all that's going on, with the expansion, with the developments and the replacement of water mains and stuff that's been into the ground since the 30s, it's hard to come up with money to buy land to set aside for well fields. Well, in our business, we need to have room for nature to participate with us. So you can't develop everything. Nature has to have a place to put water that we can take out of the ground. So I would hope you would support this. Don't even give it a second thought. Sure, we got a lot of help. The Conservation, Harwich Conservation Trust is involved. We'll see what else we can do to fund it. But please support it. It's an ideal spot, and we can definitely benefit. So, thank you.
You're next, Ms. Mann.
Noreen Donahue, Headwaters, speaking on my own behalf. I totally support this article. The speakers ahead of me said in a much more eloquent way than I can what a wonderful opportunity this is. It's probably going to make my comments sound somewhat trivial, but I truly feel they're not. I'm bothered by the fact that an article of this magnitude is presented to us without a map or an explanation. And so many articles prior to this tonight have had no explanations. The department heads have kindly jumped up and said what they could. We all know we can't hear every word in this room and everything else. I just don't understand why for so many years any land purchase always had a map. Almost every article had a brief or lengthy, whatever was needed, explanation right in here, so that if you wanted to find out a little bit further, you didn't have to go to the town clerk's office, or you didn't have to use the wonderful portfolio provided by the Harwich Conservation Trust. So luckily we have that to fall back on with this article. We may not have that with others. I hope we go back to our former practices. Thank you.
This gentleman over here.
Dal Ruthier, South Harwich. Who's actually going to own it? Is it going to be DCR Conservation or Conservation Trust?
Mr. Locke, how will the property be held?
Yes, Harwich Conservation Trust would be the landowner, and then the conservation restriction held either by the Town Conservation Commission or jointly held between Town Conservation Commission and the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR.
And would it remain huntable?
Since the land would be owned by Harwich Conservation Trust, no, it would not be. It would not have hunting. But I want to give some background to that, because that is a constituency that has an interest in traditional uses of the land in town, and it's important to call those out relative to this land in its relationship to adjoining town conservation land and the state's Hawks Nest Park, about 300 acres of which all open to hunting, which is next to this property. So a little background on why Harwich Conservation Trust does not allow hunting on its lands. With the amount of development that has occurred and continues to happen, houses and roads are in close proximity to most Harwich Conservation Trust lands. In addition, the larger properties that host walking trails have become even more popular over these past pandemic years because folks are looking for safe, fun ways to get outside, connect with each other, connect with the land and water and wildlife around them. We also believe that as development intensifies, it reduces available wildlife habitat. Well, you know, wildlife need places to find food and shelter and nest, and so they need areas that are free from disturbance, such as this. And I would say that it's important to know that there are also considerable other town conservation lands and water department lands available to hunting. So that's the background.
Anything further, Mr. Ruthier? No. Okay, thank you. Who's next over here?
At tonight's meeting, I've been impressed with the heart that town meeting has shown in the articles that it's approved. It's shown a lot of heart in the housing articles that it's approved, shown a lot of heart in supporting creation of a cultural administrator for the town. It's shown a lot of heart as you walked in by the $300 you donated to the Ukrainian relief effort that the high school students have put on with their bake sale and coffee. I just ask you to show a lot of heart in preserving our natural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Harder, Pleasant Lake Avenue. I'm speaking as a citizen, but I am, for those of you who don't know, I'm chair of the Harwich Housing Authority. And if you know me, you know that I walk around throwing fits at all times, screaming, I want housing, I want housing, I want housing. This is not the area for it. I asked. Michael knows I asked. But hand in hand with housing is we need safe, clean water to drink and to use for recreation purposes, because otherwise we're not going to need housing, because nobody's going to be able to live here. Because I guarantee you, if we don't have safe drinking water, we're toast. So I'm asking you, please, I know we love affordable housing and we need it desperately, but we also need safe water. Thank you.
Any further debate? Mrs. Foster.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say, love Harwich Conservation Trust. This is a boon for this town to spend this money. Sean and I donate our time on their different volunteer projects, and I will be writing out a check tonight towards that $3 million that you need towards these 85 acres. Good job. Keep up the good work.
Any further debate on Article 37? It looks like we're ready for a vote on this one. The motion, again, on Article 37 is accept and adopt, and it appropriates $950,000 of CPA money from various CPA accounts for this purpose. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 38. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer a sufficient sum of money from the Golf Improvement Fund to create a design and feasibility study for a 3-hole practice course and putting complex at Cranberry Valley Golf Course and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 38, Golf Design and Feasibility Study. I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $35,000 be transferred for the Golf Improvement Fund for this purpose.
Motion under Article 38 is accept and adopt, and the sum is $35,000. It's proposed to be transferred from the Golf Improvement Fund for this purpose. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 39. See if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $500,000 to be expended by the town administrator with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to pay for researching land identified or reflected as owners unknown, miscellaneous or undesignated parcels in the town assessors database or mapping system, for the purposes of clarifying title, ownership, or location of such land for town assessing and related purposes, including to determine or establish the town's interest in said parcels, Such sum shall include all fees, costs, expenses associated with activities necessary, proper, incidental, and related thereto, including, but not limited to, conducting and preparing engineering studies, surveys, and other plans, title research, and appraisals, and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
Article 39, fund land research for assessing purposes. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $500,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose.
Motion under Article 39 is accept and adopt, and it's proposed to be transferred from free cash. Debate on the motion.
Again,
Mr.
Mr.
Noyes.
Moderator. Yes, at this point in time, we're drawing out of free cash again. Could I have an account balance?
I forgot you asked that question. Ms. Coppola, when you were out of the room for a minute, this gentleman asked for where we are on free cash, and we're about to spend another $500,000, and he wants to know where we're at.
So at 7 o'clock this evening, when we started, there was a $3,076,000 balance in free cash. You've authorized thus far $2 million in free cash. So, with this, or just under $2 million in free cash. And so this will allot for another $500,000. And then you have a couple of small articles coming before you as well.
So what will that leave if those articles are adopted as well?
If everything is adopted this evening as presented, there will be just under $575,000 remaining.
Great, that answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any further debate on the motion under Article 39? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Article passes. Article 40. See if the town will vote to adopt the following proposed order of amendment for the Town of Harwich Charter by striking out the words Board of Selectmen wherever they appear and inserting in place thereof in each instance Select Board. And the proposed charter change goes on to parrot that, to make several changes to what the Select Board or Board of Selectmen are called. Mr. Churi, do you have a motion?
Article 40, change select men to select board. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 40 be accepted and adopted as printed. Any debate? Yes, ma'am.
Roseanne Shapiro. I live right up the street. I'm not going to debate it. I'm just going to say it's about time. Yay!
Mr. Noyes.
Just one quick question, Mr. Moderator. Is this going to be all town documents going forward, or is this going to be retroactive for anything that's already in place?
Well, the charter change will be prospective, as I understand it. This is a proposed amendment to the charter, so from here it goes to the Attorney General. The Attorney General has to find that it is consistent with the general laws. I assume they will, and then it comes back and it appears on the ballot next May. And if it receives a majority vote on the ballot next May, then it goes into effect.
So it would be going for all documents going forward from there?
That's my understanding. Mr. Powers?
This article proposes to change the charter references. If it's adopted at this town meeting in the manner that the moderator just said, next year's town meeting would then cover all general and zoning bylaws that may have similar references. At that point, we intend that to be the final version to be using going forward. But this is the first part, charter first, if charter is amended, then we work on bylaws.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any further debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. This is a charter amendment, requires a 2/3 majority to pass. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. I rule that it gets the necessary 2/3 majority and passes. Article 41. And just if you're trying to plan this evening, I see that a number of people left after that last article. It's almost 10:20. I generally don't take up new business after 10:45. So we'll see what we can get done between now and then. If we're close, and we're able to finish, and you're willing to stay, I'll certainly stay. But that's generally what we do. Right now, it's about 10:20. So with that, Article 41. See if the town will vote to amend Chapter 189, Noise of the Town General Bylaws by amending 189-1G3 as follows, and the new language is shown in bold. It relates to conditions imposed in alcoholic beverage or entertainment licenses. Mr. Chori.
Article 41, amend Charter 189 noise. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Motion under Article 41 is accept and adopt. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. It's a general bylaw, only requires a simple majority to pass. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Article 42. This is one that I indicated I would not read in its entirety. Remember at the outset of the meeting, it involves water-dependent structures and the bylaw in the town for water-dependent structures. All the changes are in bold and underlined or crossed out where appropriate. So I hope you've had an opportunity to look at it. Mr. Chori.
We don't have a positive.
You don't?
We do not, no.
Okay. Does anyone have a positive motion on this article? Yes, sir.
My name is Brad Chase from South Harwich. I also serve on the Harwich Conservation Commission. I'd like to make a motion to amend this article by striking 10 words that were not voted by the Conservation Commission in the third paragraph, describing why this article was put forward.
I need a main motion first to get it on the floor before we can do anything. The Finance Committee's motion is indefinite postponement. Do you want to make a motion to accept and adopt the article?
Yes, with amendment to strike 10 words from the narrative.
Well, have you got that written out?
Yes.
Why don't you bring it forward? Let me take a peek at it. If you could come forward, I'm having, is the language you want to strike in the explanation? You don't need to strike anything in the explanation. We're not voting on that.
Yes. So it's really unfortunate because what was passed by the Harwich Conservation.
Oh, wait a minute. We're not going to debate it yet. I'm just trying to figure out what your motion is.
So right here, this paragraph, moratorium on new docks and railroad was struck, removed by the Harwich Conservation Commission. And it shouldn't have been forwarded. The language we actually put forward.
Wait a minute. Let me just see which 10 words they are. Where are you?
Third paragraph on the list. Yep. The moratorium on new docks and railroads.
Okay. So, is this part of the bylaw? Okay. So the bylaw change starts where? Here? Or 304? So the language you want to strike has nothing to do with what we're going to vote on. Okay. So you want a motion to accept and adopt as printed. All right. You can get up and explain once I identify. So I'm going to recognize this gentleman for the purpose of making a motion on Article 42. And I believe, Mr. Chase, your motion is going to be to accept and adopt the bylaw changes as printed.
Correct.
Okay. And but what you'd like to do when I recognize you is to give an explanation about some of the things that were said up to where the bylaw starts. And the bylaw starts on on page 36, third paragraph up from the bottom where it says within section 304-1, that's where the proposed bylaw is. And then anything that is in bold underlined after that are the changes. So the first portion of the page there, underneath where it starts the presence all the way down to within 304-1, is not what we're voting on, but was an explanation. So with that, do I have a second to Mr. Chase's motion to accept and adopt as printed? Okay. So I'll now recognize you, Mr. Chase, for the purposes of debate.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do this. So the Conservation Commission has discussed these changes since 2014. We've held approximately 10 hearings since 2019 trying to work out these changes. I think these are really positive improvements to try to reduce the impacts of water-dependent structures on the wetlands resources and marine resources of the town of Harwich. What happened was basically a typo. In that third paragraph down, on the second sentence, it says, most notable changes are a proposed moratorium on new docks in the Herring River. That was removed from this article by the Conservation Commission. So that typo should not be confusing people. There is no moratorium presently proposed, and there's no other language that changes. All the language in the article will stay the same. It's those 10 words in that third paragraph that don't belong. So otherwise, I would urge the voters to support this to protect the wetlands and marine resources of the town of Harwich.
Further debate on the motion to accept and adopt as printed. Yes, ma'am.
Linda Sabula.
Oh, it's Linda. I'm sorry I didn't see you.
You can't tell from the purple hair what's the matter with you. Linda Sabula, Harwich Port. I'm just a little confused. I'm getting old here. I'm looking at a warrant that says the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, soon to be the Select Board, said that they accepted and adopted, but they didn't have a positive motion. So did y'all have meetings and you changed your opinions? If I could just get clarity on that.
Anybody from FinCom want to address that? Oh, we got...
I'm just looking for clarity. Michael.
Mr. McCaskill.
Good evening. Our counsel, Amy Questle, recommended with those words in there that it wasn't consistent with what the vote was. The position of both committees is that we support it without those 10 words.
Okay.
So it was withdrew under advice of counsel tonight, not in a private meeting, tonight, because that language was noted, and that's not what we approved.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Please, in the future, tell us that beforehand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further debate on the motion under Article 42. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Amy Usowski, the Conservation Administrator for the town. I'm a citizen of the town of Yarmouth, but I would like to speak to this.
Any objection to our Conservation Administrator addressing us? Hearing none. Amy.
Just to clarify the things quickly that the Conservation Commission is requesting for you to approve tonight. Substantive changes are the addition of some definitions to hopefully make a definition for this one, of cumulative impact. Also is basically a change to how people typically construct a water-dependent structure. And water-dependent structures are docks, piers, elevated walkways. In order to provide better sunlight penetration, water flow, airflow, the Commission is proposing to go from half-inch spacing in the decking to three-quarter-inch spacing, or may use grading. We're also proposing a height increase of equal to 1.5 times the width. So if you have a 4-foot wide dock and you're over a salt marsh, it would have to be 6 feet high. This is consistent with what the state of Massachusetts in their Chapter 91 licensing is requiring right now. And we have some clarification language on page 38 as it talks about variance language. So if anybody has, one big thing, I forgot to say this. Typically, we require removal of the removable parts of a dock, which are typically your ramp and your float. We used to require removal of those and storage appropriately by October 15th. But because we understand that the boating season has really been is extended, and we want people to continue to use our waterways, but not to the detriment of our natural resources, we are proposing to extend that to December 1st annually.
Thank you, Amy. Any further debate on the proposed amendment to the water-dependent structure bylaw? Again, the motion before you is accept and adopt as printed. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 43. See if the town will vote to amend the Harwich Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 310, Code of the Town of Mass, as follows. And again, this is another one that I indicated I'm not going to read its entirety. It has bold and underline for the changes. Do I have a positive motion, Mr. Chori?
Article 43, Wetlands, Harwich Wetlands Protection Bylaw. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
So the motion on Article 43 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Howe, East Harwich. I have some questions that I'd like clarified in this, because it seems to me in the discussion of the measurements of the land, there are issues with vernal pools included, and how do you measure that? And I don't see any mention of the consultant evaluating the impact on, for instance, salamanders, insects, the animal life, and what will happen if the consultant says the 1,000 feet should be 3,000 feet. I just think there's a lot of lack of clarity, and I'll add that if you look at instances, for instance, in Orleans, where someone has now, yes, it was private property, but used some of these things to actually put up fences to deny access. So I'd like to hear more on how this is actually going to be implemented and the impact on critters. Thank you.
Amy, our conservation agent, could you address those questions?
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
So the rationale from going to what is our existing 3,000 square feet for a jurisdictional wetland to a 1,000 square foot is to better protect our smaller wetland resource areas. It just means that a wetland that's 1,000 square feet would then have a 100-foot buffer zone, which is what our jurisdictional area is, and then thus need whatever activity you want to do in that area, you would need a permit from the Conservation Commission. We set the 1,000 square feet because we wanted to have a hard number to that. I've been on a Conservation Commission in another town, and they didn't have any number limit to it, and what led to was you're regulating puddles, and we don't want to do that. So as far as the consultant's fee, that is something that is rarely, if ever, used. Myself and the assistant agent in my office are the technical staff to the Conservation Commission, and only when absolutely necessary do we get an outside third-party review done of the project. This is putting a little bit of the onus on the owner to have that done for them to fund it. In the past, we have funded things, and this happens maybe once per year. So to your question about what this will do for the critters, it should hopefully protect them better, because right now we do not analyze wetlands that are less than 3,000 square feet. If they're less than 3,000 square feet, technically, you could come in and fill it. The state act is 5,000 square feet. Most area towns are between 500 square feet and 3,000, and most consistently at 1,000. As far as your question about the limits of the vernal pool, oftentimes limits of vernal pool are within another wetland. A vernal pool, for those of you who don't know really quickly, is a body of water that only exists for a portion of the year, like we have right now in the springtime, and then it disappears. It hosts a whole wildlife, a variety of wildlife that you don't see in other wetlands. So oftentimes Landward of that vernal pool, you actually have what's called a bordering vegetated wetland. So we regulate from the most landward piece of a wetland out 100 feet. I hope that answers your question.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 43? Yes, ma'am. Oh, no. Okay. Just walking. Yes, sir.
Harwich Center. Kudos to the Conservation Commission. Over the years, they've done a tremendous job protecting our wetlands. As a former cranberry grower, I had a lot of opportunity to work with the Conservation Commission. Tonight, though, I take a little exception with this new language for paragraphs J, K, L, and M. I'd like to know what the intent is. It seems to me it could create a rabbit hole, and also it would deny people with not so great a financial background to be able to come to the table and ask the Conservation Commission. You hire an attorney, you hire an engineer to come before the board, and now the board is going to ask you to pay them money to hire an expert to clarify your position. And I find that it's going to deny a lot of people the opportunity to come forward because we just don't have the money to do it.
Any further debate or any response to the gentleman's observations? Amy?
Just a very quick response.
Yeah.
This is really only meant to be used in rare and extenuating circumstances. We use our staff time and our staff resources to make these determinations. It is rare we have an outside consultant come in. And the rare times we have done that, we have paid for that in the Conservation Commission out of our wetlands revolving account, at which we're capped at using only $6,000 per year for that. So in the past, we, in many cases, have taken those expenses on ourselves. It's rare, we don't do it often, and it's only when there's ambiguity in the application that leads us to say we need a third-party review. So this is not something that 99% of the applications we see will require.
This language doesn't reflect that. It's pretty much wide open to anybody. You don't have to own wetland. You could own a house lot that's near a wetland, and you're going to end up paying. Now, in what rare situations would that occur? It seems to me if you've brought a good engineer and a good attorney to the table, because we know as an individual you can't represent yourself nowadays. You need to hire an attorney, you need to hire an engineer. What is the rare circumstance that we need to now give the Conservation Commission a fee, which they're going to use and possibly give back to me if they don't spend it all? But it does say here later on that they may keep that money.
May I answer that question?
You may, Amy, if there's a further response.
It's when a wetland, for an example, when a wetland delineation is done and we go out and check that in my department and we don't believe that it is potentially accurate, then we would ask for a third-party review of something. Oftentimes, that is something myself and that applicant's engineer can come to an agreement on what the correct line is. All this is it gives us the option where we don't currently have that option. Other towns have this language.
Yes, sir.
May I continue?
Yeah, you may. You finish your comments.
It's been clear tonight that Harwich is different than many other towns. The state says 5,000 feet for a vernal pool. Harwich wants it to be 1,000. Again, I commend you for taking on added responsibility. Mostly people are trying to shun their responsibilities. You're adding to your workload. But this right here, letters J, K, L, and M added to this is going to be a burden on citizens.
Yes, sir.
Dennis Murphy, Long Pond Drive. I'd like to offer an amendment to this, that properties can be grandfathered in that are private, that are owned now, single properties.
I'd need to see the amendment in writing to decide whether it is within the scope of the article or not.
You give me 10 minutes. Give me 5 minutes.
I can't give you 10 minutes.
Give me 2 minutes.
I can give you I can give you a couple of minutes if you want to.
Do I need to write an article to ask you to delete the new paragraphs, J, K, L, and M?
You need to put it in writing to strike those sections, and then you could present it.
Would the good town offer me a pen and a piece of paper?
I'm sorry?
Here's a pen. Mr. Moderator, is it possible?
Just 1 second,
Sorry.
please. Yes.
Is it possible to table this to tomorrow night so these folks can get their amendments together?
We don't have a motion to table.
May I make such a motion?
What we could do, let me just take a look at the time. We're at 10:40 now. I said I won't take new business after 10:45. We could move to adjourn until tomorrow night now, and then we would pick this article up at the exact point it is now. And so they'd have the evening. But that's the procedural option open to us at this point.
We couldn't table and cover a couple more items before we go home?
No, we don't have a motion to table.
I'm offering to make one.
I said we don't have one.
I move we table this and move on to another item.
There is no motion to table in our motion chart. We don't have a motion to table. That's why I said the procedural option
There's no
open
such
to
thing
us.
as a motion to table. I
That's right.
understand now.
Right.
Second.
All right, so you want to go to the microphone, sir?
Motion.
As I understand it, you move to adjourn the town meeting until tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock here at the community center.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody second that? Okay. So it's a debatable motion.
Can I ask a question? I was
If it's pertinent to this motion.
Well, I had been here waiting before he came up to the motion to make a comment.
You can vote no on the motion to adjourn. That's your remedy at this point. It's on the floor. Do you want to debate the motion? You can tell people why you don't want them to vote for adjournment.
No.
All right, okay. So, doesn't look like anybody else wants to say anything. All those in favor of adjourning the annual town meeting to tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock here at the community center, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no.
No.
The motion carries. The meeting's adjourned till tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. We'll pick up at the exact spot we were at on Article 43. I'm going to hold this motion, Ken.
Typewriters going.
Yeah. Sorry.
Does the white-haired man have dibs tomorrow night?
He can speak.
Does he get first dibs on the microphone tomorrow night?
Not unless he's up there.